Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome your host of the #1 For Honor podcast, Norgoz. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Weekly Warcry Podcast. I'm your host, Norgoz, and I have some awesome fellows with me tonight that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys that I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for being here. This is the #1 For Honor podcast. We're going to be talking about, of course, we're going to have meaningful discussion about community-driven topics here. Got a great show in store for you tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about leaving players behind and accessibility to For Honor in terms of mechanics and whatnot. We're going to be talking about the state of dodge roll, what we should do or not do with it. We're also going to do discussions in regards to hero balance. Primarily, we're going to talk about Warlord, and we're probably going to end up talking about Raider again, guys. I have a really good discussion that I had with someone earlier this week that I'm going to bring up. What we're going to be talking about Raider specifically. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our guests here right now. I am joined together by apparently a bot. Let me close that out there. There we go. I'm joined today by Baxtyr, who plays at a competitive level and has some of the most high number of hours streamed For Honor of any content creator on Twitch. Probably one of the greatest Zerkers that I've ever seen do it. We've also got Fatal-Feit, who is known as a competitive player. He's got a lot of experience under his belt, and he's recognized by Ubisoft as someone who tests things behind the scenes. He's got a lot of both direct knowledge and behind-the-scenes knowledge of the game experience. Thank you for being here. And TopRamanShaman, the most enlightened of Shugo mains. My main man right here, a very highly entertaining individual, has the voice of an angel. And I want to thank you all, three of you, so much for being here tonight. Really, really appreciate you, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, guys, I want to talk to you about, want to tell you guys, first of all, I want to reiterate this, guys. What is our purpose here with this podcast? Our purpose is we're dedicated to meaningful discussions of community-driven topics, and ultimately with the intent to bring the community divide, bridge the community divide through valuable knowledge, experiences which others may have overlooked, and we want players to really think outside the box. When it comes to these discussions, to see more of the big picture, and that's why these questions and discussions, what they're intended for. All right, so again, I'm your host, Norgoz, and we're going to get straight into it, guys. So I want to say this before I get too far into this. Yes, it is it's bittersweet, and if you missed the Warriors Den, I got to let you guys know it's with a heavy heart that I announced this. It's not really an announcement. It's just kind of letting you guys know in case you missed it. The Warriors Den announced this Thursday, about 15 minutes into their stream, that they're no longer going to be doing active streams every week. The dev team's not going to be doing active streams every week. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be alternating between live episodes and blog posts. So they're still going to have that available, but it is something that you're not always going to see. So we're going to still do this on Fridays, and you may, because of them shutting down the active stream every week, we may do a couple things differently. So look out for some potential additions in the future going forward in future episodes. Now, moving forward to our topics, we are going to be talking about whether or not we're leaving players behind, whether or not that should happen. And what I mean by that is, should we leave behind new and low-skilled players for the overall health of the game? Is that something that we should be doing? Now, there's a lot that's involved with that discussion, and I want to get into this. So here's kind of the context. You know, we've seen this in many games in general, but fighting games are a different breed. You know, if you're dumbing down mechanics, if you're trying to lower the skill floor, how does that actually impact the overall health of the game as a whole? Ubisoft has done this before with some of the changes that they've made with certain characters, certain heroes, certain mechanics, and with that in mind, you know, our discussion today is surrounding that. Is it something that should be done? Is it something that should not be done? And at what point should we say, okay, we can't dumb this down anymore? All this is doing is just hurting the health of the game. Do they just cut their losses and start moving in a different direction? That's pretty much the premise of what we're doing. So currently, the dev team faces many game-changing decisions from mechanics to game modes, hero reworks, and overall combat focus. As an example, aggressive attacks versus turtle defense, which they've started to move in that direction, more aggressive as opposed to defensive. There's definite certain from dev team and community alike, and it raises a lot of questions. So, how do we make that determination? So, my first question is, why do we need to focus on, why is it that we do need to focus on, or that we may need to focus on new players' complaints and their experiences? Why do we need mechanics to be manipulated to benefit low-skill players? And I want to start this off right off the bat with Baxter. Your thoughts?
Just on low-skill players and leaving them behind.
In terms of so just to so we're on the same page. So why do we need to focus on new players' complaints, or why is it that we need to manipulate mechanics to benefit the low skill players? Why would we? What were reasons that you can come up with that we need to, if any?
To benefit the low players?
Yes.
Oh man, I just think that the overall skill level of the community is in a place where there's not enough people who can play and show that the highest level is a necessary thing to balance for. So that's why they keep balancing for low skill players, because that's 99.999% of their community, other than 40, 50 players that know the actual tactics that should be used and can pull them off.
Okay.
So that's my opinion on why they keep making the changes they make, because it actually affects the majority of their player base, and that's what they think is important. But when in fact you get to the point where you understand why it's broken, then you're playing at a unfun level.
Okay. Well, my thought, what I'm trying to get to is can you is there a thought process that you guys can come up with that as a reason that we should do it? Ramen, your thoughts? As he's adjusting his mic here.
Dang buttons don't want to work.
I'm sorry to hear that, brother. We've had some technical difficulties before we started the stream, guys. I apologize.
So, I mean, as for new players, bro, I completely agree with what you and Bax are saying. Honestly, it's obviously casual is majority of their community. The whole comp scene makes up just a fraction of what it is, and for the most part, it's all on PC. I mean, the only thing I can think is maybe the developers have some kind of notion that the more casual scene of the game knows what's fun over what actually works in the game. So when you have a majority of your player base saying, hey, Aramush is broken, or this is broken, whatever's broken, then I think they're going to lean more towards that side to obviously fix for the masses, and then the competitive tweaks kind of come along with it at the end.
Okay. Your thoughts, Fatal?
Well, I mean, it's like this whole question could be separated into different parts. I think yeah, I actually don't think the developers are aiming to make the game more for casual, but they do try to throw them a bone every now and then. They try to balance the game in a way that casuals can still have an enjoyable time. And as Baxter said, that's like 90% of players, right? 95% of players, you want to make sure that they have an enjoyable time with the game. And I do think it's good and reasonable for developers to look at casual players and see what their opinions are and try to adjust the game accordingly to what they want. Because again, like that's where the sales are from, right? That's where the majority of the player base is from. But I think the whole idea of how do you balance a game around casual players is like the wrong question to ask, because you don't balance a competitive multiplayer game around casuals. You cater to casuals, but when you cater to casuals, you cater to them in different ways. You don't create a multiplayer game saying this is for casuals. It never works. It's not on record. It just doesn't work. If you want to get casuals, you want to appeal to them, you do things like add character lore. You look at Overwatch. How do they cater to casuals? They add things for lore. They add comic books and stuff. For Honor, they usually do that too. Like they really pay attention to character design. They say casuals really like cool looking characters. We need more characters that look really cool, have really cool outfits, more color palettes, more different weapon variety, stuff like that. More executions, more emotes, meme emotes, right? So when we talk about like how do you cater to casuals and things like that, I think it's like it's very reasonable, but I don't think they're intentionally trying to make the game more for casuals. I think For Honor initially started that way because the developers were casuals. They don't know fighting games, and now they're getting better at it. They're getting better understanding of For Honor themselves, and so they're catching up. Just like the competitive players, as time goes by, we know the game more. We say dodging is now overpowered. You need to fix dodging, which is something we'll talk about later. But things like that. Developers are catching up to that, and they adjust things little by little because there's the whole meme of like Orochi light spam. The developers never changed that, right? They never made Orochi's light spam worse. So it's just I do understand like we have a vocal majority on Reddit and things who are like make the game for us, but we also have to understand that For Honor has a community that's very weird for a fighting game. It's very weird for a multiplayer game because we have a community that's made up of Dark Souls players. It's made up of single player players who came from Assassin's Creed or Ubisoft's other titles. People from all sorts of demographic that's like not used to this whole fighting game community kind of thing. So they don't understand either. And I think the developers do understand who they need to listen to, what they need to address. It's just when and how is more the concern here. When do they address this? When do they address that? Do they even address it?
Right.
And I'd say like in terms of like to stay on topic in terms of like what they should do or to balance it for the health of the game for casual players is just give better tutorials, teach players how to play. Like it's as simple as telling players how to deal with Aramusha, telling players how to deal with Centurions, how to deal with light spam.
Using the resources that have available. We've talked about that on episode 2, I think, where you were part of that. We're just using the content creators, the resources they have available to them. I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah, it's like I feel like balancing the game in any way for casual players is just making the game worse. You're lowering the skill level. Casual players are always going to suck unless the players who wants to get better at the game, who wants to learn the game, they're going to learn. For Honor, it will be fine for them. The players, if they want other players to get into For Honor, they don't care about making the game easier. They don't care about that. If something is too hard for them and they complain about it, they're always going to complain about something. They are always going to complain about something. The game could be super balanced. Characters could have a 50% rate on all their charts and everything. Players are still going to complain. Casuals are going to complain. That's why they complain about characters that are too weak. That's why people complain about Centurion.
So let me hop in here real quick. Can you clarify for us what you would see an example? Because I know you'll have one. An example of what we mean when we're just talking about like making things a little bit more easier or more accessible to new players. Because I know I've got a couple, but what would you say is some good examples for that?
Visual feedback. I think one of the changes they made kind of early in the development that was pretty good for both players was adding more visual indicators for things like undodgeable attacks. What is it? The recent change for Dominion, where they change how we can see the UI. Like now we can see more clearly when people are dead and when they aren't, but also when they made it so like the skulls aren't in our faces. So like, because newbies can still see, casual players can still see when someone's dead or not, or when people aren't breaking. So things like that, like that's good. That's good, and it benefits both players actually. A hardcore player is never going to ask for the game to give them less information. They're never going to ask for the game to not help them or benefit them in some way. I mean, people are still asking for revenge to be shown, right? So things like that, it's like things like that are stuff that I do encourage that they do to appeal to the casuals and things, because I always say like give people more information. People want information in a multiplayer game, and casual players, they need to be fed information because they don't go out looking for it. They just need to be fed it.
Well, so let me follow up on this question then to move this along a little bit. I want to ask on how does placing? So first of all, let me say this. So first of all, none of us can come up with a really good reason so far as to why we need to put a focus. This is what I'm getting so far. So Fatal, you guys all made a lot of really good points on what you've said, but so far I've not heard anything from anybody saying this is what we need. This is why we need to focus on mechanics being easier for new or low skill players. This is specifically why we need to do it. And that's exactly what I was looking for. None of us has been able to come up with a good reason for that yet, unless I misunderstood something, and I don't think that I did. So the reason I asked that question, guys, is that so far none of us come up with a good reason for that. And here's the thing: is that with that, I agree with a lot of the points that Fatal has said. So far, you took the wind out of my sails. A lot of the things you've said are some of the things that I was going to say. Is that when it comes to you lower the skill floor on fighting games, then what happens is it doesn't change the fact that somebody who's not good at reacting to a certain character or a certain mechanic or something, they're not if they don't want to get better, they're not going to try and get better. I play the game for the most part at a casual level, so to speak, in terms of frequency and how much I envelop myself in the game. I consider myself definitely above average, but I'm certainly not yet at the competitive level. But I play the game casually in the sense that, yes, I'm going to play it when I can. Am I going to go out of my way to try and get better? No, but the difference between me and the people that bitch about Raider Stunning Tab or Conqueror Shield Bash or things like that is when I get hit by those things, I blame myself. And I say, hey, that's my fault. I have trouble doing this. It's kind of frustrating. It is what it is. I own that shit. That's going to be the difference. So making things easier or more accessible for players that are low skill or newer to the game, I agree. I don't think it's really going to change the dynamic and improve the overall health of the game because it's also making those things just as easier for higher end players. And which leads us to our next question. Why do we need to focus on, or excuse me, how does placing a focus on new and low skill players impact high end and competitive players? So we've kind of talked about that a little bit, but I want to get the feedback from Baxter and Ramen. Baxter, what is your thoughts on that? How does placing focus on low skill players impact high end play?
Well, I think what Fatal was saying is right, actually, that they really haven't been focusing on lower level players lately, and they've been focusing on trying to make the game more competitively balanced. So, uh, yeah, I'm not sure they are doing that, really. It was a thing at the beginning, he's right.
Right.
It's not a lot of it anymore. It is more focused on listening to what the smarter players have been saying, I think.
Okay, I see what you're saying, and I'm just so that I'm not trying to think of what I was gonna say. Like, I don't want to be misunderstood here. I'm not trying to say this to suggest that that's what the developers are doing. I'm simply asking the question, in terms so that we can all get on the same page, because a lot of players think this way. A lot of players seem to think that we need to put more focus on on making it better and making it easier for newer players or people that are lower skilled, and that's what I'm trying to get out of everybody, is that can we come up with a good reason as to why we should do this or should do that? And since we haven't at this point, like, how does focusing on that affect the high end gameplay? And I think
I mean, Shaman brought this up. I'm sorry for interrupting. I think Shaman did bring this up, and I think it is actually a very, very good point for any game in general, is that the casual players do focus on things that competitive players might miss, because they see numbers, right? We see numbers, we see wins and things like that. Like, we don't see the game the same way as casual players, and so casual players can always put in good feedback on things like if it's fun or not, if it's because that's a big point, because competitive players play a game because it's fun anyway, right? We still play it because we're like, this game looks really good, For Honor looks amazing, it feels amazing to play, and when we hit someone, it feels, there's a crunch to it, and we love that. So casual players do look at that, and they do talk about fashion, they do talk about features that we always take advantage of at some point. I mean, I don't customize my heroes, but I know everyone does. Every single competitive player who's not me customize their heroes at some point. So I think, like, when I brought up the whole, like, cater to casual players in a different way than game health, it's things like that do matter. Like, does it feel good when a character hits someone? Like, that the hits done on that, like how hard that hits, that's understandably a big point for both players. I remember when the Aramusha change happened, right? We had Aramusha mains who actually got upset because they changed the hit stun. And so for them, even though Aramusha is more balanced now, some of us competitive players who played Aramusha were like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel fun or good. I remember Weeaboo was a huge Aramusha main. He was complaining about that. He said, even though it's healthier for the game, it's not as fun to play this character. And so like that's something that casual players do talk about. They do mention, and that's for Ubisoft to address. And so I think how fun a game is and things like that is something that casual players can give their input in, and developers should listen to.
So, Fatal, do you think adding depth to a character like that, so that like there's more to understand about what's happening to you, is a good thing or a bad thing for lower or for the community as a whole? Because I like how Aramusha worked. I understand what Louisville means about how it's not as fun when you're not confirming that kind of extra input and little detail.
I mean, it's so honestly, I feel like that's one of the things that Ubisoft did wrong. Is there's always going to be attacks like Orochi, a Warden, where you do one attack, it confirms another. I think something like that, it's as simple as giving a visual feedback, like a new visual indicator, like a gold indicator, something that says this next move is guaranteed. And it's one of the things where it's like an Aramusha, they could have easily just did that. And it would have fixed the problem, in my opinion. And maybe even put that in the character movesets, right? Say, this confirms this. And if Ubisoft leave it that way, then everyone would have been fine. But instead, they changed it, and now for casual players, but neither casual players or competitive players in this example were really that satisfied with the results of this change.
So ultimately, we made a change for basically for like new or lower skill players, and it didn't seem to have the impact that it wanted. People are still complaining about Aramusha. Some of the same people that were complaining about Aramusha before not being able to react to it still can't react to the lights. Like the same people that say Orochi light spam, they still can't react to it because they aren't taking an interest in recognizing that the issue is not the hero, the issue is not the mechanics, the issue is not the game, or the issue is your inability to recognize that you have not taken the time to understand the mechanics and understand the game and understand the hero and what the capabilities are of what your hero can do versus that one, and the matchups and the mix-ups and whatnot. The core mechanics is what makes a fighting game a fighting game. It's not the combos. It's not the that's not the end all be all of the game. Like we have mix-ups in For Honor, like there's combos in like Street Fighter and stuff. We don't have supers necessarily like there are in other fighting games. But that's not just what makes the game the game. What the fundamentals of the game, the core mechanics, and being able to know what the matchups are, being able to get the footsies in there, and there are footsies in For Honor, although it's it's a little more complicated to understand, or a little more complicated to explain. There is something like there is that there. So if you're not paying attention to that, if you don't take an interest in actually trying to learn that and make yourself better, then we're going to keep running into the same situation. And that's what I think we're kind of we're mostly on the same page with that. I think. Ramen, what's your thoughts on all this so far?
I mean, like I said, bro, everything's about fun. You can't. I mean, to me, coming from somebody who plays as a casual, it's for me. When I play the game and I'm up against a conqueror, let's just say, I don't look at that conqueror and I'm like, oh wow, can't wait to fight that guy. Like I'm dreading fighting this 5-minute whatever match of just fates and getting blocked on the whole time. I mean, thank God it's better than it was, but that I view it all from a fun aspect, and I completely agree. Like by no means do I think they should nerf a game in general for the more casual side of gaming, because people at that point come in with short attention spans anyway. They come in, they're like, ooh, this guy looks cool, his moves look cool, I'm gonna play him, and then they just get pissed off by the cheesy stuff on the game. But that doesn't mean you need to nerf tactics, nerf characters into the ground. To me, I come from the school of hard knocks. Like people need to just play the game, learn the game, progress through the training. As Fatal said, have a more in-depth training, having more indicators to help new players out, and maybe even options for new players. Well, I don't know, that wouldn't be very balanced. I don't know. I was going to say maybe options for new players where they could access different things, different indicators and stuff. And in a more professional scene, people could have that off if they wanted to, or to challenge themselves. But overall, I think they just need to make strides to, at this point, keep who they already have in the community. The community's already small, so I just think they need to pander to whatever pleases the masses, because overall, you're not going to please everyone in the long run.
I agree with a couple points you made on the game does need to be fun, and you said the magical word options. You need to we need to have options. Yes, we need to have the option of doing things that are more difficult to do, that are more impressive in a sense. And we've talked about the Daigo parry on Street Fighter a couple of last week or week before. We talked about that, and I know it's a different fighting game, but you have to understand that's a really crucial moment in fighting game history. You can't talk about fighting games without talking about that. That is something that is a crucial moment that at the end of the championship, Chun-Li versus Ken, Daigo's Ken does a hard parry on every single one of Chun-Li's fast kicks, and that is insanely impressive to watch. I linked that on Twitter after the last episode where we were talking about that. And if you haven't seen that, I recommend you go see that, because the Daigo parry is what made a lot of people in the fighting game community want to get better at those traditional fighting games, either at Street Fighter or otherwise. Because we talked about it was like a forward fireball plus a back, and then it's like 5 different button inputs that you have to do every single time you parry, and he did that about 8 to 12 times or something like that during those fast kicks, and then you have to get a jump afterwards. It's kind of crazy. So I know for some of you that are just listening to this as an audio only situation, you may not be following what I'm talking about. So let me not get too far off base here. So coming back to For Honor in terms of how all that relates is, yes, we need to have the option of doing those cool things. That's fantastic, but the game isn't all about that, and you can put those options in. You can change a lot of stuff, and we can make a lot of changes. And I want to say this before I forget it. I put this in chat. I know that there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this or listening to this, and you may be in the situation where you're casual. You may be in the situation where you're one of those people that have made these complaints. This is not a personal attack on you. I ask these questions to get these answers so that we can kind of put a big picture perspective for you. So if you're personally offended by this, that's not our intention. But if you're personally offended, I think you need to take a step back and say, hey, maybe there is something to what they're saying. I knew that this episode was going to be a little could be controversial to some people, but it is something that it is a little bit of tough love that the community as a whole does need to hear and does need to understand. As an example, earlier this week, I had somebody who came into my Twitch channel, and he said something to the effect of, it's like the devs don't even play their own game, and said something about Raider stunning tap, Raider being broken or overpowered or whatever it was. If some of you guys were here, let's not elaborate on that. Let's not get distracted from that. I don't need names. And I said, listen, man, there's like 4 different ways you can react to Raider's stunning tap. You can block it. I said, just block. You can block the stunning tap. It is reactable. I parry it. I still parry it, even though it's down to 367 and 333 milliseconds. It's possible to do it on a read. It is possible to do it. It's tight timing. It's really tight. You got to be ready for it, but it's doable. It is doable to deflect or parry. It is doable. It's been done. It will be done again. You can block if it's a side heavy, block the side heavy and then dodge. If you dodge with the right timing, you can block both the heavy and the stunning tap. Either one, if they follow through with the heavy or if they feint into the stunning tap, it's doable. You can if you have the right situation and you have somebody who has a quick light, you can light him because the heavy doesn't have a hyper armor on opening. And the stunning tap does not have a hyper armor either. You can stop them in the middle of their attack. There's multiple different ways of dealing with this issue. You could, hell, if you really wanted to, you could dodge roll away. That would probably work too. So, which would be a good segue for our next topic. But I have one final question to ask on this one. So again, and ultimately they did not want to admit that they were wrong, and they wanted to mock me when I had some complaints about a Black Prior I had trouble with. And there was the difference between me and him. I said, I have trouble reacting to these things. I said, I genuinely have trouble with it. It's frustrating, but it's my own fault. So they were like, well, just dodge. I'm like, you're not wrong, but it's cute that you want to throw that back in my face. But the difference is I was complaining about my inability to do something, and you're complaining about the game and the hero. So ultimately, it didn't turn out to be a good conversation, unfortunately. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that, you know, there are people that are out there just have no interest in bettering themselves, and they just want to blame the devs for their shortcomings, unfortunately. Hopefully, and I think that many of you guys that are here aren't in that category, but you know, it's something to keep in mind for those of you that might are. I know that's not grammatically correct. So one more question here before I get to that. I'm your host Norgoz. I'll reintroduce ourselves here. This is the Weekly Warcry Podcast. I'm joined today by Baxtyr, Fatal-Feit, and TopRamanShaman. Awesome individuals within the community, content creators and/or competitive players all alike. And to kind of get some final thoughts on this. So far we've talked about should we leave new and low skill players behind, the ins and outs of that, why we should, why we shouldn't, why it is that we should focus on low skill players' benefits, and none of us could really come up with a lot of really good reasons for that. Casual players typically tend to flock towards a number of heroes, fluff mechanics like for fashion, things of that nature, different game modes, new heroes, that kind of thing. It's not so much the actual. It's typically not necessarily the gameplay, but I think the gameplay is a huge core part of why people come to For Honor and why people stay in For Honor. So it's a slightly different animal than what other fighting games might give us. And my question is, how is we've been talking about how For Honor's overall health hasn't been impacted by these changes, and my final question is, should For Honor move away from changes that are more made to benefit newer, lower skill players, and effectively leave these players behind in order to benefit the overall health of the game? So when we say make it easier, somebody asked earlier, when we say make things easier, and, you know, we've kind of gave a few examples, but, you know, basically dumbing down mechanics to make it easier and more accessible for newer players to kind of pick up the game. But you're not necessarily doing anything to lower the skill ceiling. The skill ceiling is already there, and if you lower the floor, you're effectively raising the ceiling in a sense. So, your thoughts on this Baxter? Should For Honor move away from these types of changes that would be made to benefit more new or low skill players? I know that they haven't done a lot of this, but in the general sense, is this something you think that's something they should continue to do, or should we be moving away from that entirely? I know it's a big one.
I think the way they're moving now is smarter than they were before, and it's less focused towards it's the focus for new players is more cosmetic and fun than like game balance, and the focus for older players is now game balance, and the main focus, I think. So I think my answer is that, like I said before, they already are moving in that direction, and it's good. And the idea that they're not going to do the Warriors Den every week anymore, I think that was talked about a lot on the casual sub after there were a couple of Warriors Dens that were really just lackluster and didn't have much to say.
Yeah.
And I think it is important not to do it if there isn't anything to say, because you're going to lose your viewership if you're just putting on an hour of nothing.
Well said. And what I was going to say earlier when I brought that up, I failed to say that, as I really do. I tweeted this out, and I wanted to touch on it while that's on our minds. Is that I think that it is a good change to make. I think it's a quality of life change that is really good for the developers. They deserve more love and respect than what the community tends to give them on the show. I mean, just in the last show, the first 5 minutes, somebody said delete Raider and remove Centurion and some other bullshit, and I'm like, this is insane. I watch the chat, and it makes me sick. It disgusts me at the core. And I think it's going to be a better quality of life change for the players too. And here's why. I know some people are going, well, how exactly is that going to be a quality of life change for the players? All of these people that are coming to the show to bitch, moan, whine, and complain no longer have an outlet for that. They have to figure out what they want to do. Either they have to deal with the issues, and they have to try and actually deal with the problems, or they're just going to have to find somebody else that's going to listen to their bitching. That's really what that comes down to. I think it's going to be a better quality of life for those people because now they're no longer going to associate their negativity with the dev stream, which associates that with the game, which just kind of compounds upon the bullshit that they've already feel like they've been having to deal with. Whether or not it's legitimate or not doesn't matter. In their minds, they're upset about certain things. So I think that's going to be a good quality of life change for the players as well, and that's what I mean when I say that. To follow up on this, TopRamanShaman, do you think that we should continue to move away from the new and low skill players? I guess the dumbing down of mechanics and things of that nature to benefit the newer or lower skill players. Do you think that's a direction we can continue to move away from?
I do. I think at this point, as far as we are into the game, I mean, this game is already known as a game that's kind of harsh, so to speak, for new players to get into. But for those who do stay and for those who do dedicate time to the game, there's more than a wealth of information. I mean, we're talking about people who make guides, numbers guys, people who break down the statistics of every single thing in the game. So I mean, in my opinion, if you can't really get a grasp of the game after that, on top of what the game is, already implemented, because in my opinion, even though it could use some more stuff, the options and the tutorials and stuff for Honor are already pretty in depth, compared to other fighting games that just have basic tutorials and a list of combos. You know what I'm saying? They do give you the breakdown of what to do in the game. So at this point, with the wealth of information that everybody has, and being able to come into streams and learn live, I think they just need to move it in the direction that keeps the game light, that keeps the game fun, but still competitive at the same time.
Okay. Fatal, do you agree? Do you have any more comments to add?
Personally, I think that they aren't doing enough to teach new players how to play. I mean, they've tried. I mean, they've definitely tried. They revamped the tutorial. They gave us a whole practice mode, a practice arena, which is amazing, right? And they've done little things here and there to help give people more information, but I don't think they've actually done enough. And I feel like one of the issues with For Honor and why everyone who has an issue with For Honor is looking for an outlet, and that outlet happens to be the Warriors Den, right?
Right.
The reason why it's like this is because the game isn't doing itself a favor by teaching players how to play or giving people the information they need. It's not even encouraging them to play better. The game pretty much just says, "Hey, play a match," and then you're done, right? Here's the win. Here's new gear and stuff. The game doesn't even encourage you to want to learn. It doesn't encourage you to try to get better. The tournament is a joke, right? Like ranked mode is a joke for the most part. Tournaments are like special, but there's only like 50 players who play tournaments, right? So like there's no incentive for like the average player to get into the game and really learn. And the tutorials, it's still not giving us enough. It's still not giving us the right information. I mean, you look at hero videos and stuff like that, like those things are super outdated. They don't tell you how to do anything. There's, even though they revamped the tutorial with the whole mission structure, you do that and it tells you after you get a parry, guard break, right? Like that's not something you do anymore, but it's giving players the wrong impression, giving them the wrong information. And of course, like a lot of this information is for 1v1. And 1v1 is like 15% of the game. I'm gonna be honest, like 1v1 it's like I started off as a 1v1 player, but that's like 15% of the game. It doesn't the tutorials don't teach you how to 1v2. It doesn't teach you how to gank. It doesn't teach you how to survive ganks. Revenge, like I mean, we can even talk about revenge. Like revenge makes no fucking sense to a new player. They attack someone, suddenly they glow yellow and they get knocked back and die, right? But even as a professional player, even as competitive, we still hope that for more out of revenge, because revenge is inconsistent. We can't see what the build up. So like if we can't even guess when revenge happens, how can a new player guess how revenge happens or understand how it happens?
That brings up a really good point, and I want to say that because you've said it, but I want to put this in the direct context. Anybody who didn't catch that, you just mentioned we can't see what anybody's revenge meter is at, and I think that's important. I think that in the back of my head all the time. At one point, now correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I want to say at some point in time, there was a very tiny, and I mean a fucking small ass fucking line directly below the stamina bar that you could see the revenge meter at. And maybe I'm thinking crazy or something,
No.
but I think at one point in time for, however long it was, there was something really, really small.
That would be nice. No, there never was that though.
But maybe I dreamed it. Maybe I dreamed it, and I'm just I'm too tipsy to tell the difference. But the honest truth is that what you're saying is that needs to be there. And every time I go to look at somebody's health bar, I think I subconsciously I see something that's not there. And maybe that's my own fault, I suppose. But that's something that I do see. It should be there in some way, shape, or form. Be it between the health bar and the stand. No, it'd either have to be on top of the health bar or underneath the stamina bar. If you put it in the middle, it's going to just confuse people.
It could be your icon fills up and glows.
Yeah.
Like it could be a lot of stuff.
Be a lot of stuff.
The UI is inconsistent. Let's be real. It's like your health bar. Like sometimes you think you have like 20 health, but you actually only have like 10, and so that one light attack kills you. So things like that happen. So
yeah,
it
You
could
need
have been
damage numbers, health numbers.
I would like that.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. We could even see something like a direct number of health above your something. Maybe we could see something like that. And I know that might be something that in some ways would make it easier for, that could, the dev, I don't know, some people would probably consider that a casual change, but I don't think so. I think that's a quality of life change for everybody, because whether you're new to the game or whether you're playing at a competitive level in the middle of a tournament, if you don't know what somebody's health is and you're kind of guessing, like if it looks like they've got 2 bars of health and they're like just right at 2 bars of health, they might have 51 health, and you do a Raider zone and it lands magically, and you land that Raider zone and you hit them for 50 damage. You're like, oh, match is over. Nope, they had hyper armor and they just killed you because you were critical already. So you're screwed. So
I think this was a heated discussion in the competitive community for a while. Should we show the revenge meter, right, Fatal?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I hear a lot of casuals, and it's like it's a surprise mechanic. It's a mechanic that just happens, and it adds some interesting dynamic to the game. But it really, I've heard all of it, but I don't think so. I think if that's a surprise mechanic, then we shouldn't show stamina, right? Like someone going out of stam should be a surprise mechanic. So I think the more information people have, the better. I would even go as far to say like putting revenge and our feats to like the bottom left of the screen is still hard for some people like myself to see. Like if we have options, you mentioned options before, like give us more options so we can say toggle an option to move the meters to like below the character or something, so we can look at our character, see all the UI, revenge and stuff like that. Like that would also be a quality of life change.
There could be a
affected
casual UI and a competitive UI, with smaller elements or bigger elements depending on what's more important to see for if you're casual or
Yeah, I mean MMOs has scalers, right? Like you can scale the UI to your liking and things like that. Yeah.
customizable UI would be really nice.
That would be cool. I would love to, honestly. I would love to see something like some people being able to mod the UI and stuff like that. That would be really cool. I wouldn't expect this to be in like a traditional fighting game, but something like what we have with For Honor, because while it is a fighting game, it's not exactly traditional, and there's a lot of UI stuff that happens that it would be nice if we could potentially mod it. Sure, that would be cool, but honestly, at the end of the day, I don't know if it's. I don't think we would probably see that, but I think it would be a cool idea. Whether or not it would be, because I think it would open up too many doors, too many risks for people to mod something and find some kind of an exploit or something like that would cause issues or give somebody an advantage.
Not really, modding, but like the community would come up with their own. Like there would be tons of UI posts, about how I like the way it looks and how I like to make it look to be the most competitive, and people would put their own little spin on it with their interest. It would be good to have a fully customizable UI with sliders on the size of things and checkboxes to add things like the revenge meter and damage numbers. I don't see them not doing it.
If something is exploitable, it can always be addressed, right? Like I've always been, a person who's always like, give us more options, give us more freedom to play the game the way we want. So like everyone customizes their controllers differently. They do different setups. There's people who use the Steam controller or the Steam UI, the Steam something where they can map zone attacks to a different button input or stuff like that. and that's completely fine. And in one way, somebody mapped a macro for a PK zone onto a button, and so the PK can spam that with like no recovery, and like that's good because it actually showed something that needed to be addressed eventually, and the developers addressed it, and so things like that. I personally am okay with that. I think it's healthy for the game. I think the more issues we iron out, the better.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that the more issues that we iron out is the better the game is going to be, and we've definitely still got some ways to go for sure. But so any final thoughts on should we on in regards to the mechanics, casual players versus competitive and so on and so forth. Everything we talked about before. Any final thoughts? Anything else that before we move on to our next topic, which is dodge roll? No, okay.
I think we covered it.
Good. I think we thoroughly covered that one and then some. We had a lot of really good stuff that came out of that was not even on our docket, which was good. We had a lot of good stuff that comes up, and that's why I like these podcasts. Is that they're real, they're authentic, they're we do it. We're fucking it. We're doing it live. You know what I'm saying? And we always come up with something that's good. And I'm glad that I have awesome individuals like you guys to join me on the podcast. So the state of dodge roll. Now, here's the context. Dodge roll is one of the most heavily debated mechanics in the game by far. And so far, no one has come forward with a solution that both helps escaping ganking, but also addresses the strength of avoiding mechanics that dodge roll seems to provide, and in some cases, people would say potentially exploit. So, my first question on this is, how often do you personally dodge roll? And in what situations do you determine dodge roll is the most appropriate or optimal option? And I'm going to start this one off with Fatal. You look like you got something you want to jump off at the gate with.
I mean, it's like, for me, I don't dodge roll enough, so I'm not the expert on it, but I do know that it's an unhealthy feature for the game, for at least in 1v1s, because you have issues where it's like, if there's a mix up that initiates, that like it starts to initiate like a Shigoki heavy, and then it closes with a mix up where they try to grab you or something like that. It's dodge roll just gives you an iframe, right? Like you just dodge right out of it. Kind of like Nobushi's hidden stance, but not as bad. Um, and it's like, it's that really is hindering a lot of hero designs. That makes it very hard for the developers to create aggression and do these certain cool designs where they in their head it's like, this is gonna make people scared and then it's gonna catch them, but then dodge roll happens and they're just like, oh no, it sucks now. So for me, I don't dodge roll enough. Like even when I fight a warden, I don't do it enough. Like for me, I don't care about winning or losing. I just play to my strength, and I'm not as good as I like to say I am. I don't have it in my head to dodge roll, but
Me
I do
either.
know that like people do it against me, and I'm just like, yeah, this is a mechanic that needs to be addressed. And before, everyone was always thinking like, to address it, let's just give every hero a way to catch rolls, to design things like Warden's Valiant Charge, I believe is what it's called, where he catches, like he does a forward dodge into a heavy, right? Like things like that are things they've tried to do before, where they start address heroes little by little to catch rolls, but that does take extra effort. That does put in a lot of extra stuff that needs to go into heroes, and it does hinder some of their designs where they just don't want to give a hero that kind of catching move, right? And so like, I think it's like dodge rolls in general. Like I personally would say like, I'd rather have it not exist in the game, or better yet, like I'd say like, just don't make it something you can do from dodge. I'd say just, you either dodge or you either roll, and that's how I would see it. That's how I prefer to have it. But I don't think I'm like the expert on this topic, to be honest. I don't do it enough, so I'd say the others might have a better input than I do.
All right, I'm gonna go up and we're gonna get some feedback from Ramen actually. What are you thinking about the dodge roll?
I mean, as of right now, the way that dodge roll works, I just think there's too much there's too much incentive to do it right now. It's like there's no incentive to not do it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm playing Shugo and I'm winding up anything, if I'm winding up a heavy, no matter what I go to, whether it's a cancel into a zone it doesn't matter. They use it to avoid a hug. There's no reason to not roll on me, because by the time you roll and I have enough recovery, and I have enough recovery to start attacking again, you're already on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I honestly, my only thought on dodge roll is that you can keep it, but make it a mechanic. And I don't know if this would work for ganking as well, because I know ganking is used a whole different way, and with dodge rolling that I'm not really aware of.
No, by all
But
means. So suggestions for solutions are exactly what we want. What we want.
it's to me, it's just make it cost more stamina. To be honest, make a roll something to where it's like, make that roll count. Like, okay, I really don't want to get hit by this move, so let me roll away, but it's going to take 90% of my stamina away, or increase the recovery from when you roll to when you can come back and start attacking. I just, like I said, they need to give it less incentive at this point, because it's just way too powerful. It negates basically everything.
All right. So then you're saying you're essentially saying it's a little too powerful right now, and you would like to potentially see it cost more stamina as a potential solution to kind of offset the strength that it currently has. Okay. So then your thoughts on what's been said so far, Baxter, and your personal experiences with dodge roll.
Well, I was always a big dodge roller back when we figured out that it only had 100 milliseconds of GB vulnerability, and I would use it in the same mindset as an option select, or like doing a dash attack when I missed a deflect. I would do a dash attack sometimes and roll some other times, and they'd have to make the read to parry the dash attack or to go after the roll. But it's already 2 layers deep, so they're having to make multiple reads to figure out what I'm doing. I thought it was a nice deep system, but the problem is really with characters' movesets. Even Berserker, like, he doesn't have tracking on his forward dash attack, so I can make the perfect read that some Nobushi is going to back dodge and roll away from my unblockable, and if I don't extend the reach of my dash attack perfectly, if I buffer it, it'll actually whiff in front of the Nobushi's face because it doesn't have tracking. All it needs is the blue tracking, and I think a lot of characters' movesets are just completely missing that, and they need to go through one season and just make that the priority, or completely change dodge roll. Like Shugo just needs to be able to soft feint his heavy into some kind of valiant breakthrough type attack to be able to catch the roll on a read. He needs to be able to follow through with his read and get damage.
I think that what you just made is a suggestion, the blue tracking on like a dodge attack. So your thought process would be to give everybody, or to give most of the roster, a blue dash attack with that level of tracking to potentially be able to deal with excessive dodging.
I think a lot of characters have just terrible dash attacks, like Vorty. Vorty has like the worst dash attack, right? It has no tracking. It's a little tiny poke with a no hitbox. It often just whiffs right in their face. Like, that's a normal bait people use right now, is to whiff it right in your face, because you'll try to go for the parry looking like it's going to actually hit, but it doesn't because it's so bad.
And just when he wonders why he whiffs. Exactly. So I think that's actually, I wasn't even thinking about that. So blue tracking on a dash attack, I think that's a really, really good suggestion. That's not something I've thought about.
Speed up the dash attacks too, because some of them just can't catch rolls.
Can't catch
unless it's 100% buffered, and then when you buffer certain dash attacks, they don't go as far.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things at that point that we may need to potentially look at. So I really, really like these suggestions. So far we've talked about it's overpowered. It seems like we're kind of on the same page. It's just it's too strong. But again, that's why I go back and I say, so far we've not come to a solution yet. And there's been a lot of suggestions, and I imagine Fatal is probably tested more than what we even know about, and it's something that there's just not been a solution yet. Nobody's come up with the actual solution, because if you remove it outright, then what do you have to prevent ganking? At that point, you're going to have to adjust something else, right? You're probably going to have to make some adjustments to revenge. And I think some people would argue with some definite validity that revenge needs some more tweaks. So potentially, if you adjust revenge, there's a lot of what ifs there. Potentially if you adjust revenge, maybe you could potentially take dodge roll out altogether, and it might not hurt as much. But as it stands right now, if you take out dodge roll, you're going to get ganked to death. If you try and dodge roll away from a warden and he's ready for it, and he does his dashing heavy, you're going to get caught. It's every time I do that, I get caught. And maybe it's just they're in the middle of doing it already, and it's tracking because I'm dodge rolling backwards. Maybe it's just my luck, but oftentimes I get caught by that shit.
I have a weird idea for a fix. How about like if you're in revenge, your dodge roll goes twice as far, and maybe they give you some kind of speed boost, like to incentivize revenge being the way to escape. Maybe even give you a speed boost after a dodge roll to make it make sense to a noob that that's how you escape.
Okay, that's not a that's I don't
It's
know.
just an idea.
No, yes, I don't think it's bad. I think that there's definitely some things that we'd have to question about it, like whether or not people would abuse it, in terms of like trying to catch and run somebody down. But ultimately, regardless, I think that's a good idea. It's a good concept. I mean, we're getting suggestions out here. It's something that we'd have to, everything's gonna have to be tested extensively. But that's what I want to hear from you guys, and I appreciate it. That's outside the box thinking. Getting some, so we get speed boost on the dodge. We get further on the dodge roll. We get a buff on the dodge roll, and then we also get speed boost right after that. Yeah, I could see
I think
that.
a lot of people use revenge to just, the problem
Hunker
is
down.
like ganking, right? It's like if the other team knows how to gank, you're not going to be able to hunker down and get your revenge and use that to try and stall the fight out. And that's where the real problem arises between balancing for the competitive community that knows how to gank and the community that just feeds revenge.
Okay. Well, go on, Raman.
Would we be able to make rolling something more skill based in the game, something similar to like a Nobushi hidden stance, or maybe something to where the different classes, vanguards, assassins, heavies, hybrids have different frames of rolling, something similar to like adaptability in Dark Souls 2, in which it's something that instead, for example, because I just play Shugo mostly from a Shugo's mind state, something instead of being like, hey, I'm charging up an attack, just instantly roll away and you're free from everything I do? Or can we give it more of a time where it's like, if you don't roll away within a certain time frame of certain moves, you'll get hit by that move essentially?
I think that I think there's definitely moves in the game where that's probably already. I mean, I think we could probably say that just about, there's a lot of moves in the game where that already applies. Where if you just have the timing wrong altogether, but your suggestion is like a specific mechanic that would more lock down and I guess effectively guarantee a move. If they're as whereas it might not already. Is that kind of essentially what you're kind of getting at?
Essentially, yeah. Essentially, just so dodge roll isn't used as a basically a trump card. You know what I'm saying? To get away from everything, make it something that you can use to get away from specific moves, or specific moves if timed correctly, so to speak.
Okay.
I think what Cloud Zero is saying right there, longer startup on a roll so it gets caught more, is also probably a good idea. Even the 300 MS that they added doesn't help a lot of the time. You still break guard breaks if you do it on a read.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the thing that gets me about those is I never think to actually you can't do that on a back dodge roll, right? You get caught.
Oh no, you don't.
Okay. I always think it's for me when it comes to dodging actual guard break, I always think it's got to be side. It's probably just my timing. It's bad.
You have to do it a bit early. The dodge has to be early, like
Mm-hmm.
on the light timing, right? Fatal.
Yeah.
Light timing dodge, then roll buffer.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm just gonna give input here. Like, I still think, like I mentioned earlier, that's like I still feel like going to each hero and having to give them some sort of dodge attack to catch roll. I feel like that's like that would probably be 10 times as much effort as just addressing the dodge mechanic itself. Because even if you give everyone a way to catch dodges rolls, I still feel like roll as it is still an unhealthy mechanic that does hinder the game in more than one way than just duels. So like I still feel like I mean making it cost more stamina is one suggestion, but I don't think that's the perfect solution. I think giving it more variety is probably not. I think the game needs to be more homogenized than given more nuance and features like rolls. Honestly, like because I mean like we just fixed dodges. We gave everyone 600 ms dodges. I feel like if we have this issue where like assassins can roll out of bashes but like heavies can't, we'll have a whole different issues they have to address at some point. I personally think that's like, you know, I feel like players should just have a choice where they either roll or they dodge. I feel like dodges shouldn't link to rolls. I think like, you know, maybe when you unlock, you have to wait 500 milliseconds before you can roll or something like that. I just feel.
I like Fatal's idea, where you unlock to roll, and I think it should just have more recovery because I see people do that on like my unblockable, and I try to do a dash attack, feint into a dash attack, and yeah, I just don't have the time. So if it had a bit more recovery, maybe it went a bit further, and there was no dodge into roll. That might be a possible solution.
Somebody's knocking on somebody's door.
Oh, might be mine.
All right,
it's okay. They have the keys.
All right. So anyway, all right, guys. This is a good time to reintroduce the cast, guys. Welcome to the Warcry, the Weekly Warcry Podcast. I'm your host Norgoz. I am joined today by Baxtyr, Zerk and Warlord main. Plays at a competitive level, but he's a Viking 100%. You've got Fatal-Feit, who is also he is a competitive player. He's a renowned as a in-depth game tester through Ubisoft. And you also have TopRamanShaman, the most enlightened of Shugoki mains, and entertainer here in the Twitch directory of For Honor. Thank you guys again for joining us, and those of you all out there watching or listening to us live or on the VOD through Twitch or through YouTube or however we have this going on, we appreciate you being here. We have talked today so far. We've talked about leaving noobs behind, which is directly below me, and I want to clarify that. You know, it is, and that was essentially, you know, at what point do we stop? Should developers in general, and more specifically how it affects For Honor, should we not balance things around new or low skilled players for the overall health of the game? We couldn't come up with any really good reasons as to why we should focus primarily around new or low skilled players. We have other things that are involved, like for fashion, heroes in general, number of heroes, game modes, and things of that nature that bring in casual play. And the gameplay itself is definitely a really big part of that because For Honors is unique. But because it's unique, we have to find a balance in terms of, okay, at what point do we actually stop balancing towards that demographic? And we've determined that you know, there is evidence to show that that's not what we're doing. That's not what the developers are doing anymore. They're moving more towards a more aggressive approach of as opposed to turtle defense. They're moving away from focusing on that demographic of player, which is good, I think, for the overall health of the game. That's where I stand on that. And we've been recently been talking about dodge roll and how it affects all of us as a community. What we might have as suggestions on how to change it. It's we've all agreed that it's overly powerful right now, and so far it's definitely one of the most debated topics. But nobody in the community yet has come up with a direct solution to it. We've come up with a lot of good ideas tonight, I think, though. We've talked about potentially adding blue tracking to dodge attacks to deal with to dodge roll. We've talked about maybe adding a mechanic that would set it so that if you unlock, you have to wait to dodge roll. You have a mechanic that that would potentially guarantee attacks if you're not rolling right away. That would I think that'd be complicated. I'm not sure exactly how that would function on the mechanical level, but I can see the thought process on it, and it makes sense.
More recovery. Yeah,
well, there you go. You could do that. So you've got a lot of things that we've suggested, and I know I left out one thing. The revenge thing. Baxter suggested that on revenge we could potentially set it so that Kitty Cat could meow meow meow, and we could have enhanced dodge roll and enhanced speed after a dodge roll, to prevent ganking, because that's primarily what, as I understand, that's one of the main functions of dodge roll right now, or one of the main reasons that it's not been removed, because its primary its main thing is that, okay, that's how I get out of a gank. That's how I prevent myself from getting completely destroyed. Especially if you've got, several different heroes with mechanics that you just can't get rid of. Like if you got a shinobi in the background, what are you gonna do? You got 4 people around you, including a shinobi for ranged guard break. You're gonna have to move
I
around
think
at some point.
Shinobi's his own issue.
Shinobi is his own issue, but you get my point. You get my point, though. It's still valid. Damn it! Stop yelling at me. Okay, so anyway, I guess at this point, my question is that, so we've all come with a lot of really good really good thought process, really good suggestions. I think I personally don't have a lot of everything that I've thought of so far myself has already been suggested. In terms of like you guys have mentioned, like the recovery. It's something that I consider. I was like, I don't know if how that would work out exactly. I think that. So I was like, I don't know. I'm not going to throw that out there, but it's something that it is a good idea overall, though. I think that would be a potential solution to have that work out. So my question is, so we've already kind of talked about this, though. We've already talked about how many times an opponent has escaped getting killed by you, and how kind of frustrating that makes you feel. I think we can all agree it's just a frustrating feeling, right? Top Ramen focused on that earlier. He said as a Shigoki main, throwing out an attack and unblockable or whatever, doesn't matter what you do, they're already dodge rolling away from you, and they're coming back at you in your face by the time that you can actually throw something else out. And that sounds like it's a really frustrating situation. Baxter's talked about how his top unblockable on Zerk, getting dodge rolled away from that, and of course the follow up, if you're buffering the dodge attack too soon, they're not going to catch it because it's going to be too short. It's just there's so many situations where it's definitely frustrating to both casual and competitive players. I think that adjusting dodge roll, if we can find a fix for dodge roll, I think we're going to have a huge quality of life change for all players, from casual to competitive, and I think that's something that would definitely enhance the gaming experience for a lot of people. I know it's a very, very hot topic. So, with everything that's been suggested, it's been a lot of things have been tested, a lot of things have been debated. We've talked about removing it altogether. We've talked about our suggestions. So I want to see about moving on to our hero balance segment. Before I do that, any final thoughts on the state of dodge roll or your experience with it?
I'd say I'd personally prefer them to severely nerf it and then find a way to make it good again. Because I feel like it would be much healthier for the game. I feel like dodge into rolls is the reason why most players are dodging catapults. I mean, I know it's slow, but you have feats that are like supposed to catch players, but they just have this easy dodge into a roll and mechanics like that. And I think players running away in general is just too easy in the game. I feel like it's too exploitable. Not enough engagement in like 4v4s and stuff like that, because players, if they want to stall, they dodge and roll constantly. They don't, things like that. So I feel like if they just nerf rolls for now, I'd be okay with it. I think it'd be healthier for the game.
I think I'm on the same page with you there. So something that just came to mind is, and I don't really think this would work. I don't think that it would work with the overall feel of the game, where everybody's kind of talking about stuff, or not, or the way that they want the game to be. Right now, you have different heroes have different ranges of dodge rolls. In case anybody in the audience didn't know that, there are different ranges of dodge rolls for every character. I think this is a while ago, so it might be different now. I think it's probably still accurate. I think Shinobi and Berserker had the longest ones, if I remember right, and Highlander, I think, had one of the shortest ones. But ultimately, semantics. The point is that if we were to normalize dodge rolls, like the actual distance and the overall speed, and it would ultimately be more of a nerf to like assassins and stuff like that have very long dodge rolls and very fast dodge rolls, or not very fast, but very large, very long dodge rolls, as opposed to a buff on the slower ones. So I don't know how that would ultimately impact us overall, but I think it's something that we could take a look at as far as like normalizing it.
I think it definitely needs to be something I consider more risky than like going for a dash attack when I miss a deflect. Like I try to deflect a light, they throw a heavy. I've dodged, and right there, I split between two decisions. Should I do a dash attack or three decisions? Should I do a dash attack? Should I do nothing, or should I roll? And I consider that roll option the safest one, and it shouldn't be the safest one. And there's too many options there already for the other person to make an accurate read off of. I think there just needs to be less defensive options uh, in general, and dodge roll is the big problem.
I think we're all on the same page there for sure. It's it fits into the defensive category. You said the magic words. It fits into the defensive category, and that's something that the community, I think, as a whole, is really wants to get away from. And the devs have clearly recognized that. There's evidence to show they're moving in that direction of getting away from turtling. And I've said that like 50 times tonight, I feel like. So sorry for being repetitive, guys. But ultimately, that brings us to our next topic, and that's hero balance. Every podcast we like to talk about hero balance in some way, shape, or form, be it game mechanic balancing, or hero balance. We like to talk about things that affect everybody, and something that affects everybody is hero balance overall as a whole. Specific heroes such as like Warlord as an example. That's what I want to talk about tonight. Warlord's gone through many changes as early as season 2. The recent 100 millisecond static guard switch has helped heroes like Highlander and Warlord be more effective with things like crushing counters, which has been really, really good. But is it enough? And where do you currently see Warlord? And why do some people consider him weak, Baxter?
Well, I think kind of like Shigoki was for a long time, Warlord has just been nerfed over and over and over since the beginning of season 1. He just got nerf after nerf after nerf. And then when he finally got a rework, it was mostly nerfs. And the things that they buffed were not actually important for getting damage. They didn't buff the speed of his headbutt so that people could react to it at the highest level. They didn't let him charge it or cancel it or something, give him a real way to get in. Like, giving him what was it, the 100 ms static guard? It didn't help. That didn't help him actually get damage in when he's only got 500 ms lights and a 600 top, 500 ms bash.
Okay. So you don't so currently where you see it is that you still see it as he definitely needs some tweaks.
I think he's in a confusing place for development changes. He's like, he almost needs another whole rework, kind of like Orochi, where they're like, "Yay, Orochi's fixed," but nobody wants to play Orochi. Like, he's fun, he looks nice, but he just doesn't work.
Okay. Well, I want to do a follow up question with you real quick before we move on. Do you think it was necessary to nerf a shield charge, and why? Why or not?
Shield charge was a messy move. It was weird that you could do it and then do a head splitter leap afterwards to get away from guard breaks and other punishes. It was like an extremely strong option. I think they could have removed that option, and what they did right now is it takes like 3 sets of stamina away from you when it starts, misses, and then ends. And that's not how it was before they nerfed it. They gave this huge stamina penalty. And I think they could have just given it the huge stamina penalty and removed the ability to do head splitter leap out of it, and it would have been a solid mix up that didn't seem too overpowering anymore.
Yeah. All right. And your follow up on that, Fatal.
But out of lock stuff is like weird in general.
No, you're 100% right. Out of lock is we could probably take that as its own topic. Yeah, there's a lot of out of lock stuff that we could probably discuss. Raider has its own. Raider's got has its own effective shield charge with the with his grab. You've got the out of lock stuff with his zone, where you can do a back when you're doing zone from neutral. But if you unlock and you go, what was it, 45 degrees to the right, you could spin around the opposite direction. It's that's fun to do. That's always really fun to do. I've done that a few times. It's fun as hell. But Fatal, your thoughts?
I mean, I think Warlord is around like B tier, maybe low B. I think he's playable, but I think he does suffer from something that we spoke about very early in the show, which is like I don't think he's that fun. I think he's a remnant of like bad hero design. Like when he came out, he was I'd say he was like the hero everyone should look at for balancing because he had an opener, he had pressure, he had mix up in the wrong way, but he had a mix up that
He did.
from neutral made players have to think and try to space. Like he was fun to fight at first because we didn't have a measurement of what's fun and what openers should be like and things like that. So he was there, but now the game has evolved and changed so much that Warlord is just like he's just a poke character. You know, you headbutt, you poke, or you guard break, you top heavy. He's just I feel like he could use a rework, not just because he needs some adjustments, but because he just needs to be more fun. Um, but he also has suffered from one of the things that I feel like is a huge issue with the game, which is like having super armor from neutral, or was it hyper armor? Hyper armor from neutral is not a healthy mechanic for the game. So like from the get go, he can just do a heavy, goes into hyper armor with that heavy. I think hyper armor from like combo attacks is always a good thing. I think more attacks need more features to them. But from neutral, it's always been one of those mechanics that just shouldn't exist. And
Yeah, you could just wing it. You could just,
yeah,
Just throw shit
exactly.
out.
Like you could just do that, and he still has that even after they adjusted him. And I feel like all these in a combination of his unlock charge, which takes a weird amount of stamina, which we can always talk about stamina like forever, but with all of these stuff, he could use a rework that fundamentally changes how he plays and everything.
I think he's losing his identity. Like when BP is the re-envisioning of Warlord, right? Everybody who liked Warlord or Conqueror is playing BP, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot we could do currently. Like he needs a new identity. They need to give him a whole new rework, really, in my opinion. All new animations on stuff moves. Just make him have his own thing again.
Like you notice they're constantly readjusting things that he has in terms of values and stuff, and they like nerfing it and stuff like that. And that's
Throw
because
distances.
throw distance. That's because he was a remnant of the time where like a lot of these features they were experimenting, but it's just not good for the game. And we still have the super armor for heavies, which is something that needs to go as well. So like things like this, like it just kind of
I
furthers.
think removing that, he would have lost even more of his identity, though. Like, what is the difference between him and BP at that point? He's just a terrible BP.
Yeah, and that's why I think he needs a rework. Like they need to redefine what a warlord is in the game.
I could see that. I mean, I've always liked the idea of the Warlord. I've always loved his his overall look. I still to this day say he's one of the best looking heroes in the game. Him and Raider, two of the best looking heroes in the game.
Couple of jocks.
Yeah. I mean, really, he's kind of stocky a little bit. He's got sort of a slightly shorter stature than a lot of the other heroes, but that's something I like about him is that because he's really buff and but he's slightly shorter. He's just ready to go. Like Baxter just showed us there. He just throws his whole body into the headbutt. It's just just so aggressive, right? I love that. And historically, I know there was like Sword Danes were looked at in a different way. They had like a different kind of stature than others, as I understand it. But so that's kind of cool with the lore element of that.
Warlord used to be able to, in the beta, Fatal probably remembers this, he used to be able to like all guard, go right into headbutt, cancel headbutt, soft feint into guard break. And they still show that in the advanced tutorials.
I have a video I can show you guys if you want to see the headbutt soft feint into guard break.
If anybody wants to see it, literally just go to the Warlord advanced tutorial, and one of the first moves they show is that still to this day.
Ooh, damn,
and this is what I
that's a
mean
big
by
one.
giving players like false information, not
It
teaching
makes
them
no
how to
sense.
play the hero correctly. It's things like this that gives people a different idea of how to play for honor.
Those videos should have been removed a long time ago or completely redone.
Okay,
And
good.
They were
they're remnant stuff.
Really good feedback. So I want to get a follow up from I want to get some thoughts here from Ramen on what your thoughts are on Warlord, where you think he's at, and
oh, I'm sorry.
you're good, man. Go
I'm
ahead.
eager.
It's
I'm
okay.
eager. I'm ready.
Go for it.
All right, here we go. No, he's too much of a product of old For Honor. In my opinion, you fix everything with aggression. Everybody knows I'm the dumb aggressive guy. So to me, it's just
Meathead.
I think he needs more aggression in his kit to keep up with the rest of the cast currently with how they're updating people.
I think that I didn't want to say it, but now that everybody's kind of said it themselves, I think I could safely say this and not get booed away. Yeah, I would say that he is kind of a, like you guys. I think you've all said it yourselves. That he's kind of a remnant of an older For Honor. I do like the rework, the way that he's been slightly restructured to be slightly more aggressive, but he is still kind of a slow, slightly turtly in a sense, hero. Yes, the hyper armor is really, really good to try and trade, but to me, he still feels kind of slow. I've never been able to truly adopt him because to me, he's always felt really slow. So to watch somebody like Baxter to just do crazy shit with Warlord, it's really inspiring to me. Like, dude, I gotta go play that. I could totally do that. But then I pick him up and it's just like, I still feel so slow with this hero. You know what I'm saying? So I don't. It just feels kind of like it's a lull.
He has an incredibly hard time in ganks. You really have to know that, like, if you whiff a zone, you like hit one guy with it, you're gonna get grabbed in the recovery by the guy behind you. Or if you try to dodge something, you're not gonna have a dodge attack to follow up and keep yourself safe to switch targets with. So he's missing a lot of the crucial stuff for team fighting, and that's one of the things that makes him so B tier, especially in like Dominion. He's probably like C tier, right? I think something, just a cool idea for him is, I think Warden's Bash works really well. We can all agree. It's annoying, but it works really well. And if Warlord could charge his headbutt up and cancel it into a guard break or something, I think it would be a decent change.
And you can implement it. I mean, Valk has, or I don't know if she still has, but had charge headbutts.
Well, you've got Shigoki's got charge headbutt, so you've got that. So we've already got the mechanic in play.
Well, it doesn't. You can't cancel it. It doesn't have. But you're right.
It's not really charged, but I know what you mean.
Right? No. Yeah, I'm just saying like that.
It seems like an unfinished move. Yeah.
But I mean, it's something that throws off. To me, that's in my experience. And again, it's just I don't play Shigoki that often. I've been a Zerker main for the longest time since it was released under whatever closed alpha, or I'm sorry, yeah, whatever closed alpha it was released, and I'm like, dude, I gotta try this hero. And I tried it. I'm like, dude, it's like chip damage, and I got that first top heavy. I'm like, oh god, yes, this is my hero. So I've loved Zerker for the longest time, but Shigoki was actually my secondary main through seasons like 1, somewhere through like I guess 1 through 3, you could say was kind of like my secondary, even though he was
the run spam.
Exactly, he was nowhere near the same character that he is the same hero that he is today, which is I think Shugo is definitely in a much better place now than he's probably ever been. I really like the charge headbutt. That's what I was leading up to. Is that whenever I'm playing Shugo, I find that headbutt is something that once you, because it's of course it's a mind game, right? It's all mind games with Shigoki, because they're not exactly 50-50s, but you're getting your opponent to start thinking it's a 50-50, so they're going to do one thing or the other. And then at that point, once you get inside your opponent's head, you can start throwing in that headbutt in there, throw a headbutt in, then throw a charged headbutt in because they're dodging. And boom, right there, you've got themselves a little bit of daze, so you can keep going with them. You can effectively almost go with an infinite combo if you start throwing in those headbutts. It's kind of cool.
I do think Shigoki lost some of his identity as well, and I think a lot of the higher level Shigoki players would say they don't like him as much, even though he's prettier. He lost a lot of his ability to just do well at a high level. Just his incredibly strong punishes with Demon Embrace and wall throws, and his style was unique. It was a turtley style, and running away to regen your armor was very unique, and the way his armor worked, regenning every 6 seconds or however long it was something you really needed to learn to fight specifically against Shigoki. And it's similar to Aramusha, where Aramusha players may have got a little buff with having a faster soft feint sideline top, or a not confirming the top light, but just doing more damage on the side heavies. Like he lost some of his identity, and the old players who loved him don't enjoy him as much anymore. And I think Valk, another example, just lost a lot of her uniqueness with the
Yeah.
rework. Most of her uniqueness, all of her detailed stuff was removed for a boring playstyle with 24 damage heavies.
Yeah, that the big 24 big damage heavies. I mean, holy shit! And sweep's a good move, by the way. So, I gotta say, man, that I tend to agree with you. I was never really that good with Valk, but watching Hyperion as an example, the last Valk main in existence, and watching him play Valkyrie and seeing the way that she had, I mean, I knew she had mix-up potential, but watching Hyperion play her and all the mix-ups that you could do, like, you know, what the heavy into shield bash and some other random shit that I can't even remember so much of, but mixing up the shield bash in with your combos and using just the neutral all block from, I don't know, man. I don't remember all the different ways that you could do it, but I know that there's a lot of different things that have been changed, and now you've just got you're basically stuck with spam light into heavy, or spam light into shield bash, or spam light
Valk is a bit of a mess.
into sweep. And I don't
Yeah.
I don't like, I'm not mad at the devs, because I mean it's not my main, but even as somebody who's seeing it from a perspective of just the character itself, I'm not really mad at them, because I think that they had the best intentions, and I think in a lot of ways, or not in a lot of ways, but in some ways it's definitely been some good changes. But overall, the difficulty level and the intricacies of the Valkyrie are no longer there. So I agree with you 100% on that. There's a couple of mix-ups that you got taken away that you can't do anymore, and I loved seeing those take place on Valkyrie mains. I'm sorry, you were gonna say, Baxter?
Just like one of the cooler characters to play, I think these days is Shaman, because she takes so much effort and knowledge to play well, and then can still be played well in all different scenarios. And she has all these detailed things that can happen, like wall bounces from the bash that you can set up on people that they're not going to expect, because they're not thinking of that deep intricacy of how your character works. And Valk used to be able to grab someone, and if they knew they had low stamina, they could throw them into, they could headbutt them, and it would knock them on the ground, and they'd be able to do the sweep, and people wouldn't be looking out for that, because they wouldn't recognize that they were about to be at that stamina amount that allow that punish to happen. And I think that kind of detail is some of the funnest stuff in the game. And when you remove that, like imagine if they remove the wall bounce on Shaman, would Shaman players like that? I don't think so. Like on the Shaman bash, but it would just be removing a cool setup. I think cool setups using the environment are some of the most fun things in the game.
I want to get some thoughts from you, Fatal, but I want to say this because that made me remember something that you said, Fatal, on episode 2 when I asked you, why does Raider need stunning tap? And of course, for anybody who didn't see that episode, I didn't ask because I didn't know. I asked because I wanted to get the feedback, because clearly, you know, there's a lot of people that thinks it needs to be removed, and they're wrong, unfortunately. They need to be able to, as we talked about earlier in this episode, you need to be able to react to that. There's several different ways you can deal with that, and you have to learn it. So that made me think of that. So, and you said, Fatal, that every hero needs, and I think Baxter basically said the same thing, but in a different way, that every hero needs a stunning tab. And not necessarily, you know, like you said, you said not necessarily like a daze or like a bash, but every hero needs a stunning tab, something that can enhance the entire kit, something that can add something to the whole of that hero. And I think that was extremely well worded. And I'd like to get your thoughts where we're at right now.
Well, I mean, I completely agree. I think every hero needs more nuance. I think the person playing the hero should have to think more than the person fighting the hero. I think, you know, one of the things I wish Warden was for example, is they get a top heavy if they're full shoulder bash wall bounds over just getting it anyway. You know, things like that, I think makes a hero more complex but more interesting, and it really makes you feel like you're more of the hero when you have things like that, where you guys were describing with the Valkyrie, and things like that, like it's just every hero needs more nuance, and it's the more they strip that from heroes for the sake of balance or whatever reason, the more it feels less fun and interesting to play. Like
Mhm.
we've spoke about this just earlier too, where like with the Aramusha, doing that top light guarantee was like one of those advanced features or nuance that you like would that when
It's
you
just
really want to play
satisfying.
Aramusha, yeah, you're satisfying. It felt good, and the game could use more of that. I think in many ways, a lot of these mix-ups and stuff are a bit too simple, are a bit too easy to do,
Wait, wait,
and
wait, wait,
it's
wait. Ara, is that a pun? Sorry, please
it's
continue.
it's like yeah, we just need more buttons like to press. It sounds weird to say, but like the more buttons you press when you play a hero, the more fun it actually is. People like to feel engaged when they press buttons, right?
Yeah.
And fighting games have the whole thing where it's like fighting games are normally faster than For Honor. For Honor is very slow, right? So For
Yep.
Honor has to make up for that somehow, and I'd say it makes up for it through its mix-ups, through its mind games. And if we don't have enough of that, like if wall like if we can make walls more interesting, just like that, like fully charged shoulder bash for Warden guarantees the top heavy, something like that would make it feel more engaging and more fun for us who's playing the controller. I'm not a
Soft
Valkyrie
feint.
main. Soft feints, yeah, things like that.
Combo zone as an input for lots of characters. Why not have combo zone so that we can have another thing come out of combos? I don't see why they only gave it to what Nuxia and Raider. Like it's a fun thing. There could be a complete extra move in there.
Oh, I see what you're
We
saying.
could
So what you're just so that we're all on the same page. What you mean to say is like adding combo zone as like a finisher or some kind of
no,
enhancement to
as
the
like
zone at the end.
I like to always think of combo zone as just like an input, like that we could be having that could give tons of combos more branches, just like how there's combo bashes on some characters, like
Mm-hmm.
BP can do light into bash or light into heavy. More characters could have stuff like that to make their combos have more than just light or heavy or faint into guard.
Okay, so I appreciate you clarifying that. So you mean comboing in general? You want that to be able to flow through
I'd like more buttons, like
more button.
more buttons that do different things.
Yeah, more options. Exactly. And
Maybe a combo tracking attack when you need it.
all right. I think we can agree to that. The top ramen shaman. Where are you at?
I completely agree. The more nuanced the game is, the more it allows you to do. And I mean, for all we know, if they implemented some things like that, similar to what Beck said, comboing into different moves, having those different tools available, then maybe we wouldn't have such prevalent problems like dodge rolls
Or turtling?
and stuff like that. So I'm anything they want to do to increase the capacity of the game, make characters more nuanced, add that versatility, keep those mind games, because at this point, I mean, everybody kind of knows what every character is gonna do. Every competitive player, higher level player knows all the move sets. They know the punishes. They know the counters. So anything you could throw in to kind of mix it up would be, add longevity to the game as well.
Okay, I gotta ask this question. It's come up. So it's been pointed out that only certain heroes, mainly Raider, can zone into a execution. Do you, as a sort of on the point here question, or on the fly question here, do we think that would you guys like to see more zones that can actually transition into an execution? Baxter.
I don't really think it's an important thing. It's cool, but like definitely shouldn't be a priority. And I don't think a lot of these changes we're talking about, like adding moves, adding combos, that's not going to happen in this game. Maybe like 4 Honor 2, 5 years from now. Like if they ever decide to, I think they would change the name honestly. If they made a sequel, it's got too much negative press behind it. But
Ouch. Okay.
I actually said that to the developers when I was there at Ubisoft. I was like, no way does For Honor have a good enough name for a sequel. It's got way too much bad. If I mention For Honor to someone, at a party or something, they're like, oh, isn't that game dead?
Oh
And
my goodness.
You know,
See,
it's painful, but it's like that's the name.
I have to agree. It's brutal, but it's brutally honest, man. I mean, I've always said things in stream, whether it's something as silly as like, hey, everyone is like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome to have a game in the style of For Honor, but Star Wars or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can. This game, I think, is innovative enough to build other games off of, whether it's
open
from the
world
same
MMO.
developers or.
I
But
love the uniqueness of the style, like third person combat with locking on, nothing else.
no, it doesn't. It's definitely its own thing. But again, like you said, you mentioned For Honor, and it's oh, you're still on that. Like most people are playing Mortal Kombat or something at this point, something different.
Well,
We lost
Fatal, Fatal, I want to get your thoughts on this now. Or did you have to step away? I think you had to step away.
Yeah, I need to step away for just a minute.
Go for it.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right,
let
so
you guys continue.
I'll throw in some commentary on my end then. So my experience when I talk about For Honor, most of the people that I talk to, if they are gamers, they know what For Honor is, and some people that aren't even gamers that much even know what For Honor is. The one thing that I think Ubisoft did a really great job of doing is marketing that game when it first came out. I mean, they spent so much money on. I don't even know what the numbers are offhand, but I know it was really really high. I mean, you saw For Honor everywhere. You saw it on TV. You saw it on
I
commercials. You
thought,
saw
yeah, TV.
everywhere, everywhere. You saw it on. You saw they got what the big ass billboards on buildings at. I don't know. It was like E3 or conventions or something like that. Just all over like multiple buildings of just
They
giant.
did a thing with the Super Bowl.
The Super
You know-
Bowl, yeah.
Yeah.
They did. That's right. I forgot about that one, man. That you
Like
and you know
they
that's
had like
expensive.
Tom Brady playing it. Yeah,
Tom Brady
on
and
some
God, what the guys? What's
Conan or something.
Conan, yes, Conan and Tom Brady were playing that. I remember that now. Yes. That
It was incredibly cringy.
it
It was so hard to watch.
That clips of that are in the Playing Hard documentary too. But I remember seeing that live. I do. I remember seeing it
Do
on
you
actual
have the-
YouTube first.
Is there a way to get the Playing Hard documentary now? I haven't been able to.
Netflix.
Netflix. It came out. Awesome.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
I was
bro.
asking about it
Yeah,
when I
that
was in Montreal. I was like, I need that
I need this.
documentary.
Dude, okay, Bax, if you haven't seen this, man, and anybody who hasn't seen this, I say this every single podcast. If you haven't seen Playing Hard, you have to see it. It's like, I think roughly an hour and a half long. I think it's what it is. I try and watch it at least once a month now. And I'm watching it a little bit more frequently now that I'm doing the podcast. There's so many behind the scenes things in this Baxtyr. I'm telling you, this starts with Jason Vanderburg, the creative director of For Honor. That's his baby, and it follows him throughout the entire production from beginning to end. It follows the head.
I watched the trailer like 3 or 4 times. I was like, I gotta see this.
You're gonna love it, dude. You're gonna fucking love it, and I'm telling you, if it's a fantastic thing. They hold nothing back. They literally hold, from what I can tell, they literally hold nothing back. I mean, there's people getting into arguments here and there. There's things that they sew behind the scenes. I don't want to give you too much, but like there's like literal human things that are in there that you're like, damn, they left this in there. Holy shit, that is amazing.
When I asked about it in Montreal, I could tell that it was like a look around, like that's a controversial thing right now. Like that that there's a lot of stuff in that documentary that's really intense. That's hard for them to talk about in the office.
I imagine. I wondered about that. I genuinely wondered if that was going to be something that would be, like you said, like tough to talk about around.
It seemed like it was. It was like kind of a harsh thing to remember existed.
It was. It looked like it was a really really tough time for them in development. I mean, you're bringing out this new IP. It's never been done before. It's been this baby that Jason had in his mind for 10 years or something like that, and just by happenstance, everybody comes together, and it just shows this whole big story of how they get through all of these obstacles. It shows all the passion on the team. It's just an amazing documentary, and I can't recommend it enough to people who haven't seen this yet. So it's a great thing. Again, like I think it's like an hour and a half on Netflix. Definitely check it out, guys. It's on right now. Playing Hard, the For Honor documentary, and Fatal Fate. So, if you've got your thoughts still, where are you at right now with what we've been discussing on the heroes?
I think you guys said something about implementing For Honor's type of style into other games. Is where I was left off at.
I think I'd asked a question and I didn't get to you on that. What the hell was that question? I'm the host and I'm supposed to remember this, and I'm a terrible, terrible host for not remembering what that was. I think I was talking about. Was I talking about the stunning tap in terms of adding that to all the heroes? I think that's what it was.
Well,
Yeah, it's around there. I think we were past that though.
Yeah, I think
we
we
should
were
talk
too.
about Shinobi.
Oh God, no!
Right?
We
should.
It is on the docket. It is, but it's like you said. That's like a whole fucking show. I tell you what. I'll say this. Next patch, Shinobi is getting dodge guard break. Everybody's head just fucking exploded. I am kidding. I'm gonna run that joke into the ground one of these days. I am, but it's but in all seriousness, I mean, Shinobi is a hot topic. I mean, we could briefly discuss this. It is something that we would probably have to have like a huge in-depth discussion on. But ultimately, I mean, if you ask the community, they'd probably say Shinobi's one of the most broken heroes of the game, with deflect punishes taking out hefty chunks of any hero's HP. The dodges are kind of insane. It's they are a min-max hero. They are a risky business kind of hero because they have the lowest health pool of all the heroes, but it's a risk-reward where the reward is, I mean, it's really, really big. I guess I would just have to say, I just want to ask then, specifically on the punish itself, the deflect punish overall, what are your thoughts on that fatal? Where do you think that, where do you, in terms of where it is currently, is it too much, too
52
little?
damage.
Is it too much, too little?
It's. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I understand they have an identity for the hero. They have an idea of how they want the hero to play, but I feel like if it's just not healthy or balanced for the game, it's one of those ideas that just have to go. And I do feel it's like these punishes are too high. This 50 damage deflect. You know, on Anusha, she gets 40, and that's a mix-up. She has, right. It's not even guaranteed.
Or that 41 deflect, which is also blockable.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's like for Shinobi's, it's too high. I mean, on a guard break 40 damage without that actually remove his nuance for the hero. He's more boring to play because of this concept. So it's one of these kind of things. I just feel like Shinobi also needs to rework. I mean, we say that about every hero.
Would you say
have we all seen? Have we all seen Freeze's video on Shinobi?
Yeah.
And he pretty much goes over everything, and
he does. He really does.
In the end, probably says that Shinobi, needs a rework, right? And he's all defense.
I think
he
pissed some people off with that video too.
I mean, there's potential.
It's true,
there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Baxter. I'm sorry, brother. Please continue.
No, I didn't have anything else. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, like, you know, just like the Warlord, Shinobi has potential to show what he can be like if he's more balanced. Like, instead of 24 damage lights, he has like 400 MS chained lights or something like that. I don't know. Like, there's little things here and there that they can keep to remain sort of the identity that players enjoyed, but also balance them so that he's just not so unbalanced. Like, not his damage just needs to be toned down. His health needs to be increased. I know, like, to some people that's boring. Like, it's sad they have to remove this concept of high damage, low health hero, but it's just not healthy for the game. I don't see it fitting the game in any way.
My question then, as a follow-up for you guys, because I want to get this out there. I'm gonna start with Ramen. In terms of what we talked about so far, would you believe that lowering the mobility of the hero could potentially change the dynamic enough to where some of these high damage attacks could potentially be balanced out a little bit?
I think, I don't know, it's a hard one because in a sense mobility as of right now is
general. I know
really all Shinobi has. Like, mobility is the main thing. You take away mobility against someone like me, against someone like Shigoki, who's, you know, gonna crush you in 2 hits. You know, mobility is really his only strong aspect, aside from all of the strong damage hits that he has and all of the cheese. I mean, don't even get me started, bro.
Here's the thing. I want to throw this out there too. I know I'm a little bit all over the place because there's a lot of things I got in my mind right now I want to get out there as an example. So again, we've talked a little bit about other traditional fighting games. Samurai Showdown, as an example, is something that I've not played this. I've watched a very little bit about it. They've got really high damage attacks, and there's a lot more turtling in that game going on because you've got really high damage attacks, and that's what you were talking about. That's what made me think about, because Shinobi is a hero that has really high damage, and you're almost forced to play more defensively against him with almost every hero as a matchup. There are some that have certain mix-ups or baits, if you will, that have hyper armor that can kind of go through. Like if they get a backflip off of you, and you're on like a Highlander or a Zerker with the right attack, with the right timing, with activating your hyper armor, you can go right through that and just smack them right in the face and say, fuck your guard break, you can suck a dick. And that's always fun to do. But you got something, Baxter, go for it.
You just reminded me of something a lot of the competitive community always asks for, and it's just more health, more stamina, like more button pressing. Like if there's more stamina and offense works and there's more health, then there's tons more button pressing, right? And it's all really fun. I think the current amount of health that we have is giant chunks getting taken away by 45, 50 damage attacks. Like 2 of those and a little poke and you're dead. Like it really promotes turtling instead of fishing for ideas from how your opponent works by putting yourself out there. People just sit back and try to learn their opponent's style by blocking everything and dodging everything and rolling away until they figure out what their opponent's trying to do. And I think a lot of it is to do with health.
You bring up really good topic, and we talked a little bit about that on episode 2 in terms of like we seeing about raising the health pools overall, and potentially raising stamina or adjusting we talked about potentially raising stamina or adjusting the stamina amounts, and Freeze did a video on that too, and I saw that, and he made a lot of really good arguments for because the amount of stamina that you get as a punish if you're parried and whatnot, it's like 7 times for a parry, or like 3 times or 3.5 times or something for blocks. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm not that deep into the mechanics. I just know it's a big amount compared to the original, and like every light and heavy respectively, more or less, is roughly 6 for lights, 12 for heavies. Like I said, more or less roughly, that's what you're looking at. So you could go out of stamina very quickly if you throw a random heavy out. If you're on like 80%, you could potentially, depending on which hero you're at, you potentially go straight to 0. So I think normalizing stamina, at least, throughout all the heroes, or setting it up so that normalizing the light and heavy stamina drain, I think would make sense. To me, it's the lore aspect, and like if you like Raider using a big heavy axe, it would make sense in some ways if he's got more of a stamina drain on an attack, as an example, just like lore wise. But in actuality, the game mechanics of that, I would like to think that it would make a little bit more sense to be able to say, okay, this person's throwing a heavy out, I know I have a pretty good idea about how much stamina they've got left. Do you have something you wanted to add, Baxter?
I was just, again, reminded of another thing that I always think about would be nice for the speed of the game. We're talking about a lot right now.
We really are.
This is kind of a sluggish game. I think one of the great things they did to improve that was no more guard break after parry, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think another thing we could do to improve that is, you know how when you parry something, there's that long pause, and then you decide to do something, and then it comes out, and there's this huge pause. I think they could speed that up, and the same with guard break. You grab someone, there's this sudden long pause in the combat. If you had less time to input your attack after a guard break, it would speed things up, and I don't think people would have a huge issue with it.
I don't
guard
think
breaks
so
right now are this huge grab, release. It's slow.
Kind of speed it up. I really like that. You when you were saying something earlier about the speeding up of the attacks, or speeding up the mechanics. Yeah, I think speeding up the game overall as a whole. I think Fatal was touching on this. Other fighting games are much faster, and I would like to see For Honor get sped up. And I think that the devs are heading in that direction in the sense of trying to speed up the heroes in general. Like most of the assassins, if not all of them, have a comboed 400 millisecond light. I think there's one assassin that doesn't have that, but most of them have a 400 millisecond combo light at this point. And I said it once they did it with there was Zerk, and then they did it with what was that, I think Orochi, or then Nusha came out with the 400
PK's always
milliseconds.
had one.
You know, and you got PK. You've got a lot of heroes that have a 400 millisecond combo light, and I said that way back when I said they're going to normalize this across the board. Assassins are going to have 400 millisecond combo lights. It's just the way it is. And now we're starting to see 400 millisecond neutral and combo attacks on like vanguards and heavies. So we're definitely moving in. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I mean, from my perspective, it's to get a little bit more motion, more speed, causing people to think faster, to think more about, okay, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to think about? I need to be aware of this, because that's going to open up your opponent. And some people are going to be able to react to that, and that's okay. You know, that's kind of what it's there for. We're not supposed to be able to react to everything 100% of the time. Otherwise, it's just going to be a boring game. So Fatal, I meant to get back in touch with you. We're talking about a lot of stuff right now, and I think it's a really good discussion. I didn't want to call that at all. So what are your thoughts on on that right now, where we're in terms of stamina changes, health changes, and the overall speed of the game?
I mean, I think you guys touched it well. There's nothing really else to add. I agree with all of it. More health, more stamina, for all the right reasons, right? And like making the game faster, nothing wrong with that. I think, you know, it's important to stress that like a faster game that makes, you know, more competitive players or more higher tier players have to relearn the game or get better at the game doesn't hurt newbies at all, because, you know, when you're starting the game, it actually gives you more options to be able to fight better players with
Right.
with more things.
Relearn.
Like with the raider, for example, right? I still have difficulties against the new raider, and so you could easily be a player who picked up a raider, and you'll have a much better chance fighting me than if you played with like a warden or something. So it's things like that that's like, I do think it's healthy for the game. I think it's beneficial, and then I would like to see more of this just continue to happen with the game.
Your
I have,
thoughts,
I have
Robin?
a question for
Go ahead.
Fatal,
Go ahead.
though, that I think he can probably help me answer. You've probably heard the argument of speeding up or shortening the amount of time we have to parry from 200 ms to 100 ms. Do you think that's a good idea?
I mean, it's like, I actually kind of hope for that to be a thing. I think parrying being more difficult could be a good thing, but at the same time, I can also see it being less accessible for lower tier players. And there's already kind of a bit of a mix up to the whole process of parrying anyway.
Yeah.
So I can see, like, it's one of those 50-50 things where it's like I can see it being beneficial for higher tier plays, but not so beneficial for lower tiers. And I don't think it would change too much of how the dynamics already are at. I'd rather they just continue to improve hero mix-ups and things like that than to change the fundamentals of parries.
I do have kind of an argument though. Like, you know how people love watching deflect montages.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
people love
Yours.
like they love that. Not just mine. Like what's his name?
No.
Flux Deluxe puts
Barracky.
out one like every week. Yeah, Barra. People love
Crack
watching
did his
deflects
own.
because
Yeah.
they're hard though. They're hard to do. They're
Yeah,
they are.
66 ms, and I think that making parries half the window would suddenly make them so much cooler looking. Like,
I see where you're going with
because
this now.
of like the skill gap. You're
So
like,
think of
oh, that
Daigo
guy's
parry
so
then.
awesome that they can parry that like consistently. They have that timing down. It's like Dark Souls suddenly.
Yeah, I
no,
can
I
see where
can
you're
I
going
can
with
see
that.
that argument. Yeah, like it's I
It
mean,
looks
if something
prettier
like that,
to viewers. Like
eh,
if there was a tournament.
and what helps deflex is that it's fast, right? Like there's no pause. You deflect and it goes right into another attack. So
Right.
so if they speed up parries and make it even more difficult to execute, I can see it being beneficial for like
And remove
montages
the
and stuff.
pause. Yeah.
I think that the idea I like about the most about this is like you speeding up the animations and speeding up like the recovery time, like on the parry as an example, like with Zerker right now, because the delay is so long, we can get a zone off if you time it just right. Basically, you just got to wait for them to look like they're back in neutral, and then you can throw the zone and you're good. But ultimately, it's speeding up that animation would be nice because it's taken away from. That's also going to help with ganking in a sense too. I think if you get somebody that's parrying your, if you're in a 1v3 situation and you parry somebody's attack and you try and react to that, if the animation is fast enough, you can maybe able to get in an attack on them and still be able to react to what everything else is going on because it's already hectic. I think that's a really good idea. Ramen, I want to get your input on this. What are your thoughts on stamina, health, speed of the game? things of that nature.
To me, I've always been trying to push speed of the game. Obviously, as someone who originated and for the most part still kind of plays more console than PC, I do it because I enjoy the speed of the game. When I moved over from console and played some PC, the most glaring thing for me was almost in a sense of how boring PC was, to be honest with you, with just the way people sat there with the speed of the attacks, with how much easier it was to parry. I personally enjoyed the much more visceral speed of console, where it's like you personally, the viewer may not be able to see it, but you personally get that satisfaction of flick parrying a raider's stunning tap, which something on console is almost basically instant, something you almost have to pre-parry, not really doing it off of reaction. So I've always pushed for a faster, more aggressive style of For Honor.
I think that we're all kind of on the same page. I just want to follow up on what Fatal and Baxter were talking about. In terms of parry timing going like 200 to 100 milliseconds. At first, I was like immediately against what Baxter was saying. I'm like, I am 100% against this, because it's something that it's gonna force people to just basically kind of block more. They're not gonna parry as much unless they're absolutely forced to, or they're trying to style, which in some ways kind of moves towards your follow up, which is it does give tournaments and other situations where if you actually get the parry, it is more stylized, but it's also more impressive, and it does show that you know more about the game than other people. My main concern with all of it, and I can see where you're coming from, and I'm starting to be on your page. I'm starting to be on your side with it. But my main concern is dropping it to 100 ms. I think, and this is more from a programming standpoint, with what little programming experience I have, I would be more worried that would end up causing potential issues with the parry timing, potentially, for lack of better terminology, just the timing being off or being slightly buggy.
No, because the deflects are already 66 ms,
right?
And they're not buggy. So we talked about this with the devs too, and they have considered it.
Okay.
So it's definitely an option out there. I think they know.
The difference between deflects and parries, though, the reason why it might be buggy or harder to program is because with parries, that's a dual action. That's a paired animation system that's being performed, as in you and the other person has to perform something. Deflect isn't a paired animation system. That person
it is
basically
though,
whiffs
with a dot. Oh.
Yeah, but they're whiffing in a way, right? The opponent is whiffing, and then you attack them during the whiff. So it is trickier. Like, it's kind of like, I think Freeze made a video on it as well, where it's like if you move if they actually move the indicators later into the animation that you hit the parry, you're gonna get some ghosting that happens with the paired animation system early. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like,
it's kind of like time snap back in the day when we used to have attacks go through afterwards and get blocked after they, right?
Yeah. So like, I can't confirm it. I don't think either of us can. It's just something we had to hope they test, and we'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely see. Well, I have to take a wait and see approach on that. I want to say this because it's been brought up, and the question was, as a follow up to all of us, is can you speed up the game without having it separate change without having a separate change for console? You've already got the input delay on console. You've got the 30 FPS lock. That's a huge detriment, as Ramen just stated. Going from console player to being a PC player, he said that it was boring to him, or it was much slower to him because it was more of a defensive game. Because in console, it's harder to react to stuff because of those two factors: the 30 FPS and then the input delay. That's kind of a big deal for players. I know from watching people that are playing on Xbox or PS4, seeing, and I know this is, I always bring up Raider because it's a hot topic. It is something that everybody knows and understands. If I mention Orochi Light Spam, you don't get the same understanding. The stunning tap from Raider is an example. It was a 500 millisecond attack with a 400 millisecond indicator, and although we can react to it on PC, on console it's pretty much it's almost like a 50-50 for them because of those two combined issues, that the lowered FPS and you have less visuals, and then you've got the input delay. It's a really difficult thing to react to. So in regards to that, so I don't necessarily think it's going to alienate the community. I think we talked about this on episode 2, and it was in regards to, we've already got the console element of where people are already like, okay, they're already more aggressive on console, right? They're already more aggressive on console. Players are already having some more of a difficulty in reacting to some attacks on console. So we're already talking about speeding up the game in general. That's mostly going to affect PC players. I think it's going to affect PC players more than it is going to affect console players, because you have PC players that are used to things that they can look at and react to in a reasonable amount of time, and in some cases an unreasonable amount of time. And I mean that in more so that things are too slow, and they should be sped up. So if you speed up the overall game, I think you're going to get more of an impact on PC players than you do on console. Baxter, looks like you got a follow-up for it.
I really got something to say. Like, I think one of the huge failures of this game was not separate balancing on PC and console. You don't see Dota or any game coming out on all the consoles and trying to balance them all for the same platform, especially when they wouldn't be like one's 30 FPS, 160. It's a huge mistake to, like, I think if we did make these changes to speed up the game, that they would be great on PC, but they would need to not do that on console with the added 100 ms of input delay. And maybe, the next generation of consoles will figure out a way to get rid of that. And,
hopefully
we won't be having that kind of, issue anymore. But I do think Ubisoft made a huge mistake in not doing separate balancing and separate changes for PC and console with how different the games behave.
That's fair.
I agree, because in the console community as well, it's a glaring issue to a lot of people, whether it's more competitive players or more on the casual spectrum. Everyone already, bitches and complains that it's, oh, the devs only balance the game around PC. Nobody cares about, us For Honor plebs in the trenches, So it's, and I can agree with creatives in the sense that it's like adding difficulty with the speed on top of everything that consoles already having to deal with. It wouldn't be as manageable as I think people think. On PC, it would be incredible. Shoot, I may even move to PC if they do something like that, because it would be essentially. But for console, I think it'd be a bigger detriment than something that would help.
They definitely are two separate games because of what they both bring to the table in terms of like performance of the console and performance of the PC, the input delay. There's all those factors. You've even got, as a thought process, PC even has a way of getting even better input delay. It's been proven that AMD Ryzen processors, which are big deals right now. We are not sponsored by them, by the way, but this is something that you can look up and you can verify all this stuff. Is that the way that their architecture works and functions? They have they can improve your input delay of your devices by a substantial amount, enough to make a huge difference. And you've got,
basically cheating.
Well, I mean, just saying that you can. That's one way of getting a better input delay on your PC, where it's going through a different way. You're basically eliminating an extra step that Intel processors do that AMD Ryzen processors don't do. They go straight through the CPU as opposed to what I guess the old norm would be. So that's one thing that PC can do as automatically getting a leg up on other PC players or even console players that much more with the input delay. You can have a 10 millisecond input delay, and it's still a substantial difference.
I did have one little mini topic that I didn't want to forget to talk with everyone about, if that's okay. And it was kind of about the parrying being harder.
Okay.
It was block damage. You said that people are just going to block more. I really think that block damage is still never been high enough. Do you?
I agree with that, actually. I feel like some mix-ups and stuff would actually benefit a lot from having more block damage. Like, I've always thought, for example, of Highlanders heavies where like did like 8 to 10 block damage, which seems pretty high. But like, if people actually feel pressured to like have to parry it or something, then there's more successful chances of mixing people up with things like that, like from neutrals and everything. So yeah, I've honestly been one of the people who always felt like block damage is too low.
Okay, then your thoughts, Ramen?
I agree as well.
I think
Again, we go back to incentive because that it gives people incentive to turtle up punishes instead of having to worry about that extra damage that can add up in the long run.
I
I
think
do
that,
like this idea from For Honor Creatives. Block damage should get higher the more you block in a row. That's pretty good.
I think that it's one of those topics that for me as a player and somebody I try to see the big picture of all of these situations. It's hard for me to even to put my own personal input on it, but I know I'm putting myself in the player's perspective, in the driver's seat, when I'm throwing an attack and they're blocking my attack and they're barely getting any chip damage off of it. It does feel a little. It does to me, from a player's perspective. Yeah, it does feel like it's a little bit low, but I don't know, man. I mean, it's something that I think we should. I think it's worth looking into. I'll say that. I think it's obviously. I think it's definitely worth. I don't know if I can agree 100%, but I think it's 100. It's definitely worth looking into. It's definitely worth looking into. It is worth it. I don't think that it would be overly detrimental to have a little bit more block damage, but I think it would be really complicated.
Game
I think it would really.
again.
I think it would really complicate the. I think it would complicate some of the. The implementation would be complicated, is what I was going to say. Is like basically how do you determine the new numbers for all the heroes, because you're going to have to go back and revamp a lot of stuff.
Block damage is 18% across the board for all attacks. If they just up it to 30%, I think it would be a great.
Well, sure. If that's assuming the programming line goes right. I'm always looking at things from like a programming perspective. You change a line of code, it doesn't necessarily work exactly.
They already
as intended.
changed that exact line of code. They changed it from 2% to 18%. Back in the day when they upped block damage, it used to be nothing.
So you're thinking about 30% would be a good number?
I do think 30% or more is necessary to make people actually think that that's an option they don't want to have to them sometimes. Like when I would use Berserker's old top heavy that did 50 damage, if it hit someone's guard, if they just blocked it, it would do 9 block damage.
It's insane.
And I actually considered that a good hit, and I would go for that damage sometimes.
I think that 30% is actually fair. Yeah. I can get behind that. 30% is fair. I think it's a good round. I think it's a good round number too. I know that there's a lot of testing that probably went behind the 18%, but I think 30% is fair. It seems like it's a good round number. I honestly think that's. I don't know where I'm getting this 33%. From. Yeah, 30, 33, something like that. A third of it roughly. That seems fair. That would seem fair. I can get behind that. I can definitely get behind that. You don't need my approval, but I think that it's a good idea.
I mean, to put it into perspective, it's like, say there's a 50 damage heavy that's really hard to initiate, but there's like no other mix-up, and the person decides to just block it. I feel like it should at least do the damage of a light attack if you're blocking something that's like 50 damage, so like 30% of that would be like 12, 13, 14 damage. So something like that, like I feel like it's fair.
That'd be a decent amount. All right, so final thoughts on chip damage from blocking before we move on to our final question.
It's not high enough.
It's not high enough. The block damage is not too damn high. It's too damn low. For those of you who didn't get that, that's a meme from politics years ago. Just look it up. The rent's too damn high. Oh my God. All right, moving on. So my final question to all of you is, Fatal has answered this on episode 2. If you have something to add, I can definitely ask you again. But ultimately, the Ramen and Baxter, you're both content creators within the Twitch community. I want to ask you guys, how has For Honor changed your life? We ask this at the end of every episode. I want to ask you guys individually, but before we do that, Baxter, can you tell me where and when can we find you on Twitch?
It's just sporadic right now. I'm working really hard doing my landscaping, trying to get stable.
I understand.
I'm trying to take over the whole business and running stuff. So you'll see me on and off about 3-4 times a week, maybe 2 sometimes.
And you definitely want to check him out. He's an awesome Zerker, awesome Warlord. He's a very, very high. He's at a competitive level of play, but you haven't actually jumped into the competitive world that much. And I think it would be interesting to see you do more of that. I really do. But I understand.
There are a bunch of sweaty tryhards.
I get it. I understand. Like is that? Like I know where you're going with it. I know what you're. I kind of get your thought process on it. I understand. But so I got to ask you then. So you've been one of the most Eric Pope recognized you as the person who streamed the most For Honor in. Was it a year or was it like was it a rolling calendar year?
It was
or
in the year of 2018.
It was in the year of
I did
2018.
something like 1,300 hours or something. And there was a guy on Mixer apparently who did more. He was streaming 12 hours a day, but they just didn't want to consider him because he wasn't on Twitch. But that amount of time that they told me, I had no idea that I was like really no-lifing it to that point. And thinking back to that, it was kind of a turning point for me. I was like, man, I was really going to work and then coming home and streaming an average of 4 or 5 hours a day. Like it was really hard to sustain any sort of outside life during that.
Oh,
and
I
this
know.
Year,
I
this
know.
year I've been changing that up a bit. And that number that they gave me actually made me sweat a little. I was like, man, I might want to change that this year.
Man, I want to go home and rethink my life.
I did.
You don't want to sell me death sticks. You want to go home and rethink your life. But so I want to ask you then back. So, how's For Honor changed your? I mean, other than that, how has For Honor changed your life?
It feels to me like I found my tennis. I found my relief sport. I come home and I play some rounds, and it is honestly stress relieving to me. That's why I stay away from the competitive community, because it's like that's so stressful, and it's something you have to think about all day long. You need to try and stay top of the edge. Really, I want to just get home and think about it when I start playing it. I don't watch sports, but I've played them my whole life, and I enjoy playing them, but I don't enjoy thinking about them all day long.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and
but to answer your question on how it's changed my life,
okay.
Yeah, I think it's been really it fit my niche so perfectly. I loved Skyrim, I loved Soul Calibur, Smash. I loved the movement and the environment in Smash, and Dark Souls. So when this game came out, it felt like the amalgamation of everything I loved, and it was, and I really enjoyed it. And I was sad to see that the development was so sluggish, but I still continued playing it, and I still love it to this day because of its unique playstyle and system. And I hope, with their they've said, and to me in person, they got a 10-year plan for this game, and I don't think they plan on putting out a For Honor 2 before that's up. So we're gonna just see a lot of slow improvement over years to come in this game, and I will still play it like sitting down for a match of chess.
We will. I'm with you on that. We definitely will, because I mean, there's nothing else like this out there. It is something that over the years they've got a plan, and I've said it before on a previous episode that yeah, they are doing a sort of they've got a plan, and if they deviate from that plan, I was listening to this actually earlier today. Is that I said that if they have a plan, they have a long plan, and sometimes they're making some deviations in terms of like the longevity of the plan. They're taking a different direction. Instead of like going through straight, they're making a left turn because it's what's good for the overall game health. But they're not making hard deviations in their actual plan itself. I lost somebody from the call just now, so sorry about that, guys. People are out of touch here for a little bit. My apologies. Looks like we lost Ramen. As soon as he gets back in, everything will line up again. So, can one of you actually do me a favor and tag him in the Discord in case he's not aware he dropped out of the call? Just like, hey man, can you just when you get a chance? So what we've got is if they deviate from that, it's gonna change the whole dynamic of that. So I'm right there with you on that, and I appreciate you sharing all that, man. So you guys can catch him on twitch.tv/Baxter, and all of his social media, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff is gonna be at the end of the show. We have Fatal Fate has already told us a little bit about how For Honor's changed his life, and I gotta tell you, man, every time that you come on the show, you have brought a lot of really big insight to the game. You're always very well spoken, and
Thank you.
you have a lot of experience
Fatal's
to
great.
bring. He is great. He really is great, and
I mean, I just want to add to like the whole Baxter thing is that like I've never watched a stream consistently and so chill as his streams. Like, we're talking about this guy who streams 12 hours a day.
Yep.
Like we have streamers who stream 6 hours a day and they freak out by the end of the stream. This guy has always been so chill. Like every match, as he said, it's just like a chess match. He just takes it very peacefully. So like if some people like if you start streaming again and you guys want something really chill, very just something you can watch while it's raining or something, like it's a really good channel to check out. But I just want to give him a quick shout out there because I really do enjoy his stream a lot, and I think he needs more viewers.
come on. He doesn't need more. I'm just kidding. No, you've definitely you've got a special place in my heart, Baxter. I've said that for a very, very long time. So
I
shit. Okay,
appreciate it,
so
guys.
we
This
have
makes me really want to stream more.
Shaman is not going to come back on. Unfortunately, there's been a power outage. He's not going to come back on. The webcam is going to stay out of place. I'm sorry about all that, guys. We'll probably have to get him offline and get his reaction to that if I get a chance to. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. Fatal Fate, I know we asked you before about streaming. I'm gonna ask you again. Have you given to any further thoughts to becoming a Twitch streamer?
I mean, if enough people ask, I just might. I don't want to stream to an audience of nobody. It's that kind of thing. I guess everyone starts somewhere.
Everyone
We'll
starts
support you,
somewhere,
man.
and I'm gonna tell you, like, I can tell you right away, the Twitch For Honor community, as you probably know, but we support each other, and there's a lot of really good talent. There's a lot of really raw talent that's in the For Honor directory here on Twitch. There really, really is. And there's a lot of really entertaining people. There's a lot of really skilled people. There's a lot of really skilled people that are both skilled and entertaining. And that's awesome. But at the end of the day, we all know each other, we all appreciate each other, and we all respect each other. And we're a very tight-knit community. And I know I say tight-knit. A lot of people say the words tight-knit, and it's mainly Twitch. I know Dim pointed this out, that the Reddit and YouTube communities are kind of different. They are. They're kind of separate a little bit, but Twitch is its own world that we all want to give support. We want to, and it's not like that lurk for lurk bullshit that you hear all over the fucking place. We don't do that. But no. What we do is we genuinely watch each other. We know what our content's about, and we support each other because we appreciate it. I guarantee you that if you came into this community, that people would naturally flock to you because there's already been sort of an outcry, so to speak. Like people like, I want to see Fatal, and they were going to come to you. And regardless of however many come to you, there's going to be other streamers that are going to support you for sure, straight up. And you've got the skill.
I mean, I do have a question, like for everyone. It's that like I kind of I like to draw. I like to do art, and I've never actually done something for Honor. So I wonder how interested everyone is in like having a For Honor streamer that doesn't necessarily play the game as much, but just prefer just to draw the characters and things like that.
Okay, I have an amazing idea for you. For you. You could play the game, and during matchmaking you could draw.
I was gonna say that exactly. Exactly.
We'll see.
Matchmaking is boring, man.
Yeah,
it's hard to fill that time sometimes.
Bax, and Bax knows that. He has matchmaking for like 12 hours a day. That's his stream. That's his whole stream.
Most of the time right now. Like, I just want to play matches. I just want to play people in my region,
Speaking of which, there was a slight change to matchmaking here recently, so we'll see how much that has an impact on how quickly people get a game. Hopefully that'll help a little bit. Mainly, I think most of that's going to help. I think lower tier or lower reputation.
Wait, when did it happen?
Yesterday there was a change.
Oh, okay.
the patch happened to where basically it's mostly that lower rep heroes will not get, or sorry, lower rep players will not get matched. Is mostly going to get matched more with people around their reputation. They're going to be excluded from the big pool, effectively. I think that's that's the closest to the wording I can get on it. But
that doesn't sound good to me. It sounds like I'm gonna get no matches at all at the highest level, because like I'll wait 12 minutes and then it'll finally match me with a noob.
I personally,
no high level people.
I'm personally okay with that. I think it's better to have a match with bots than to have a match against rep zeros. Like that's
I'm just gonna get another account.
I did get a second account when they had the whole like the whole free For Honor standard edition or whatever it was. I've never played on it. I like logged into it so I could create content on like, oh, here's the difference between the full game and then the standard game and then the blah 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 blah, and here's all the details. And that's what I did with it, but I never played it because I don't know, I feel wrong about playing against a brand new player when I've been at the game since before the game even launched. And although I'm still not at the highest level of play, I still understand like a lot of the mechanics of the game, even if I can't react to them. If I can't react to them all, I still get it.
You'd be surprised. A lot of the people who are low level, like are on Smurfs, dude. They're from console or something. They're good.
I might, but I also have encountered a lot of them too, so I might not. I would love to see some stats.
Some of them have no idea what they're doing, but like often I'll run into a level 1 who's playing like someone who absolutely knows what they're doing, and it'll throw me off, and I'll lose the first 2 rounds and have to turn it up to like 150% to pull it back.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to fight like it's a real match, and so yeah, that's why I enjoy the alt accounts. There's a lot of people on there who might seem like they're low playtime, but they must be from console or something, because damn, they're pretty good. And there's lots of unique styles going around, even though they're not very optimal. It's fun to fight all these different players, and they're all in my region. They just don't match me against them.
We'll see. We'll see what happens, I guess, with the changes. But I mean, I don't think it was a very big change. I think it was mostly just with the low reputation. So we'll see what happens with it. I mean, I know that they've been trying to experiment here and there with matchmaking, and hopefully there will be some I guess, efficiency improvements. Because I mean, 1 to 3 minutes for a duel is not bad, but that's my time. That's not Baxter's time. Baxter's time is what, 8 to 12.
It's 6 to 10, yeah, and sometimes just infinity.
It's just at that level of play, it's really hard to find somebody that matches that, and it takes a long time to actually get it to open up. So, again, talking about speeding up the game, maybe we could speed up the matchmaking by just spreading out the skill level and everything a little bit quicker. But that also means that we're going to potentially get more latency issues, because you're going to have people that are, you're going to grab people from across the pond or from other side of the world somewhere where they're 120 latency and you're at like 20, and then or vice versa, you get on their server and it's the same. You create a different problem. So I don't know. Anyway, guys, so at this point I want to thank all of you for joining in. Ramen's in the chat right now. I thank you guys so much for joining us. Ramen was going to be streaming after the show, but unfortunately, because his power went out, clearly that's not going to happen unless he's going to
I'll turn mine on right now.
I was getting ready to say, like, if Baxter would like to jump on there and show us how it's done, the main Zerk game, the game Zerk master. I mean, this guy is like, he's a freaking. I'm telling you guys, he's really. You guys know who the fuck he is. What am I talking about? I'm gonna shut the hell up. I'm going to go ahead and roll our end slide here in just a moment, but thank you guys so much. Thank you to Baxter, to Fatal-Feit, to TopRamanShaman, all of you guys for joining us this evening, and all of you that are viewing out there in the world. We really appreciate the support, appreciate the love. This is a podcast, this is a talk show that is about meaningful discussions about community-driven topics. So there's things that you want to hear talked about. We're probably going to be talking about it at some point in time. Next week, we're probably going to be talking about removing tribute and elimination matches. Are we going to, talking about removing game modes? And there's some other topics that I'm currently working on, and I will let you guys know by Monday or Wednesday what our guests and our full topic lists are. So stay tuned for that. And next week on Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific, that's when you can find the podcast right here, twitch.tv/Norgoz, NORG0Z. And I'm here Tuesday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific through 10. But of course, Baxter's coming up right now. I'm going to throw the end slide, and guys, have a great night. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for having.
I cut Fatal off. I'm such a dick. I'm sorry. All right, guys, get ready to raid. We're going to raid Baxter, guys. Get ready for that. Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much. Say hi to Bax for me.